Hi guys. Tonight we're traveling back to a world long before cities, roads, or modern comforts, to a time when surviving winter was one of the greatest challenges early humans would ever face. Picture a freezing prehistoric landscape. Snow covers the ground. The nights are long and bitterly cold. Food is becoming harder to find with every passing day. For prehistoric humans, winter wasn't cozy. It wasn't a season to enjoy beside a fireplace with warm blankets and hot meals. It was a fight to stay alive. Every day meant gathering enough food before the cold became unbearable. Every night meant protecting the tribe from icy winds, hunger, and predators hiding in the darkness. Without modern homes, electricity, or supermarkets, early humans had to rely on simple tools, fire, teamwork, and pure instinct to survive until spring. So what exactly did prehistoric humans need to do to make it through the harsh winters of the ancient world? How did they keep warm, find food, and avoid freezing during endless Ice Age nights? As you settle in and relax tonight, let your mind drift back thousands of years to a cold and ancient world where survival depended on intelligence, endurance, and the power of human cooperation. Section 1. Tonight, you are about to step into a forgotten world, long before civilization, where every night could be your last. The wind moves slowly across a frozen valley, carrying the scent of wet, stone-old smoke and distant animals. Snow gathers between black trees, while the last pale sunlight fades behind enormous hills of ice. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen, creatures wait patiently for weakness. Somewhere beneath the snow, old bones sleep quietly beneath the earth. You are not a king, not a warrior, not a hero from legend. You are simply trying to survive the winter. Before we step deeper into the darkness of tonight's story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more calming historical journeys. And while you settle beside the fire tonight, comment your location and local time below. Somewhere in the world, someone else is listening beside their own quiet night. Now dim the lights and let the cold ancient world slowly unfold around you. You wake before sunrise because the cold refuses to let anybody sleep deeply anymore. The air inside the shelter bites your nose immediately. Your fur covering feels stiff from frost, and the animal skins beneath you smell faintly of smoke and damp earth. Beside you, someone coughs softly. Another person shifts beneath layered hides, trying unsuccessfully to stay warm. The fire near the cave wall still glows faintly, though only barely. Thin ribbons of smoke curl upward toward the dark ceiling above. The clan survived another night. That alone feels fortunate. Outside the shelter, winter spreads across the valley like an endless gray ocean. Snow covers the ground unevenly, shaped by powerful winds that howl across the open land after sunset. Small trees bend beneath frozen weight. Ice grips the river farther below. You step carefully toward the entrance. The cold strikes immediately. Your breath becomes white clouds drifting into the dim morning air. The silence feels strange at first. No birds sing nearby. No insects hum beneath grass. Even the forest seems cautious now. Only the wind speaks. Far below the rocky slope, several hunters already study the valley. You recognize broad shoulders wrapped in reindeer hides. Spears rest beside them, their sharpened stone tips pale beneath weak sunlight. Nobody wastes movement this time of year. Every step burns energy. Every mistake costs warmth. Historians believe prehistoric humans understood this balance remarkably well during harsh winters. Many ancient groups followed animal migrations, carefully moving only when necessary. Some researchers even suspect entire routes became seasonal traditions repeated for generations. Though honestly, standing here freezing beside sharp rocks, tradition probably mattered less than avoiding death. A child appears beside you, quietly rubbing tired eyes. Her cheeks look red from cold air. She cannot be older than 6 winters. Any food, she asks softly. You shake your head. Not yet. The girl nods without complaint, because hunger no longer surprises anybody here. That may be the most unsettling part. You return toward the weak fire, where older clan members crouch beside flat stones covered in cracked bones. Yesterday's meal still lingers faintly in the air. Burned fat, marrow, smoke, wet hide. Nothing luxurious. Still, the smell makes your stomach tighten immediately. One elderly woman carefully strikes stone against stone, near dried grass. Tiny sparks jump briefly through darkness. Her hands move slowly but confidently. She has done this thousands of times before. Fire means survival. Without it, the valley becomes merciless within hours. Some historians argue prehistoric people guarded fire more carefully than tools or weapons during winter migrations. Others believe certain groups carried smoldering embers inside bark containers. While traveling across snow-covered landscapes, nobody truly knows exactly how often fire disappeared entirely. You suspect it happened more than people like imagining. A sudden gust enters the shelter entrance, stirring ash across the ground. Several people glance nervously toward the weakening flames. The old woman notices immediately. More wood, she mutters. Two younger hunters rise without hesitation. Outside, they disappear into pale morning fog, carrying stone axes polished smooth from years of use. The clan leader remains near the entrance, staring toward the valley below. His beard holds tiny crystals of frost. One hand rests against a spear shaft wrapped tightly with animal sinew. You follow his gaze. Nothing moves. That worries everyone. During easier seasons, herds cross the valley regularly. Reindeer, wild horses. Occasionally, massive shaggy mammoths moving slowly through distant grasslands. But winter changes animal behavior completely. Food becomes scarce. Migration routes shift unpredictably, and hungry predators grow bold. You once heard strange noises outside camp during the night. Heavy breathing, slow footsteps near stone walls. Nobody investigated until sunrise. Large paw prints circled the shelter entrance. Cave lions, perhaps, or something worse. The memory still lingers uncomfortably. Nearby, one young hunter begins scraping frozen fat from inside an old bone using a sharpened flint blade. The scraping sound echoes softly against stone walls. Thin curls of marrow fall into a small container carved from antler. Nothing gets wasted now. Not skin, not sinew, not grease. Even cracked bones become valuable during deep winter. Archaeologists discovered many prehistoric camps filled with shattered animal remains, suggesting ancient humans extracted every possible calorie from their hunts. Bone grease may have provided critical energy when fresh meat disappeared. It sounds unpleasant, because it probably was. Yet your stomach growls anyway. Outside, daylight slowly strengthens across the valley. Pale sunlight reflects sharply against snowfields, almost painful to watch directly. Smoke from the shelter drifts upward into still air before vanishing completely. The hunters return carrying branches covered in frost. Good. For a moment, relief spreads quietly through the cave. Fresh wood snaps loudly once added to flames. Sparks swirl upward. Warmth slowly returns to numb fingers and stiff shoulders. Several children edge closer immediately, stretching hands toward heat. One boy nearly falls asleep sitting upright. Nobody laughs. Sleep itself becomes difficult during brutal winters. Cold temperatures, hunger, and constant alertness likely exhausted prehistoric communities continuously. Some anthropologists believe groups survived partly because people slept in tightly packed circles beneath layered furs. Warmth shared was warmth saved. The thought feels oddly comforting. A sharp cry suddenly echoes from outside. Everyone freezes. Hunters seize weapons instantly. Spears rise. Flint blades flash beside firelight. Even the children remain silent now. Another cry follows. Human. You hurry toward the entrance beside several others. Snow crunches beneath your feet as freezing air fills your lungs sharply. Far down the slope, a lone figure stumbles through drifting snow. One of the scouting hunters. He collapses once before rising again weakly. Something is wrong. The clan leader moves first, descending carefully across icy ground. Two others follow closely behind. Nobody speaks while they disappear into blowing frost. The waiting feels endless. Wind pushes against your face. Snowflakes gather slowly across fur coverings. Behind you, the fire crackles softly inside the shelter, almost absurdly calm compared to the tension outside. Finally, shapes emerge through pale fog. 3 hunters returning, and the scout between them. Blood darkens one side of his leg. Not much, but enough. The wounded hunter breathes heavily while entering the shelter. Frost covers his hair completely now. Someone immediately pushes heated stones closer beside him, while another offers water melted from snow. "What happened?" asks the old woman quietly. The scout swallows hard. "Nothing alive in the valley," he says. Silence follows immediately. Even the fire seems quieter. The hunter closes tired eyes briefly before continuing. "The herds moved south early. No one answers at first, because everyone understands what this means. The valley cannot feed the clan much longer." Outside, the wind deepens across the frozen world. Snow drifts quietly over ancient stones, while daylight fades once more toward another brutal night. And somewhere beyond distant hills, the surviving herds continue moving south without you. For now. Section 2. Morning arrives slowly, though the valley never truly becomes bright anymore. A gray haze hangs above the snowfields, while weak sunlight struggles behind distant clouds. The wounded scout sleeps near the fire beneath heavy reindeer, hides his injured leg wrapped carefully with strips of softened fur. Beside him, someone quietly melts snow in a stone bowl, blackened by years of smoke. Nobody speaks loudly today. The news settled heavily across the shelter during the night. The herds moved south early. That single sentence changes everything. Without migrating animals nearby, the valley becomes little more than a beautiful frozen trap, and prehistoric humans understood traps very well. You sit near the entrance, sharpening a flint scraper against smooth stone. Tiny flakes fall into your lap, while cold air creeps steadily through the cave opening. Outside, wind brushes loose snow across the ground in thin silver streams. The clan leader stands farther uphill, studying the horizon again, always watching. Some historians believe Ice Age hunting groups developed extraordinary observation skills because survival depended entirely on noticing tiny environmental changes. A missing bird call, fresh hoofprints, or altered wind patterns might warn of danger days ahead. Honestly, modern people panic when phone batteries reach 3%. Meanwhile, you are over here studying snow like your life depends on it. Because it does. A low smell of burned marrow fills the shelter, while several women divide the last dried meat strips, carefully among the children first. Nobody complains about portions. Complaining wastes energy. The little girl from yesterday receives a thin piece no larger than 2 fingers. She chews slowly beside the fire, eyes half closed with concentration. You pretend not to notice how hungry everyone looks watching her eat. Near the rear wall, older clan members organize supplies into neat piles. Animal skins, flint tools, spears hardened by fire, bone needles wrapped carefully in fur. One woman tests leather cords by pulling sharply with both hands. Preparation has already begun. Migration is coming. The idea spreads quietly through camp without needing discussion. This shelter protected the clan through several winters already. The cave walls block harsh wind beautifully. Nearby slopes once guided herds directly into the valley. But winter changes old promises, and nature never apologizes. Outside, 2 hunters return, dragging frozen branches behind them. Ice cracks loudly beneath their boots of layered hide and fur. One man carries rabbit carcasses hanging from a cord around his shoulder. Small catches, still valuable. A boy rushes forward eagerly until his mother grips his arm gently. Excitement around food feels dangerous lately. Hunger sharpens tempers quickly during hard winters. Anthropologists studying prehistoric communities often debate how cooperative ancient humans truly remained during starvation periods. Some evidence suggests remarkable food-sharing traditions. Other findings hint at violence, abandonment, or desperate social fractures. Most likely both existed. Human beings have always carried kindness and cruelty together. The rabbits disappear beside the fire, where careful hands begin skinning them immediately. Warm, metallic scents drift briefly through the shelter before smoke overtakes everything again. One elderly man cracks tiny leg bones, expertly using rounded stones. Even rabbits become complicated meals here. You step outside searching for fresh air. Cold instantly grips your cheeks hard enough to sting. Below the slope, the frozen river stretches across the valley like dull gray glass. Snow gathers unevenly along its edges where reeds once grew during warmer months. Farther away, black forests cover the lower hills in endless shadows. Beautiful from a distance, terrifying up close. You remember summers when children played beside that river without fear. Fish flashed beneath clear water then. Birds nested among tall grasses. The valley smelled alive. Now it smells frozen. Even sound travels differently during deep cold. Every distant crack echoes sharply through still air. Every footstep seems louder than expected. A movement near the trees catches your attention. You freeze immediately. Several others notice it too. Dark shapes stand between snow-covered trunks far below camp. Motionless. Watching. Human, perhaps. Or not. The clan leader raises one hand slowly, signaling silence. Nobody moves. Wind brushes against your fur clothing, while tension spreads quietly through the group. The shapes remain visible only briefly before vanishing deeper into forest shadows. Gone. Just like that. A younger hunter exhales sharply beside you. Spirits, he whispers. The older hunters ignore him completely. Historians still argue whether prehistoric humans believed natural landscapes contained spirits similar to later ancient religions. Cave paintings and burial rituals suggest complex symbolic thinking existed surprisingly early. But nobody truly knows what Ice Age people feared most once darkness arrived. Predators probably ranked highly on the list. Back inside the shelter, the atmosphere changes suddenly when the wounded scout awakens. He tries standing, immediately grimacing from pain shooting through his leg. "You should rest," someone warns. "We move soon," he replies stubbornly. Nobody argues further because he is correct. Moving an entire clan before heavy storms arrives requires enormous effort. Hunters must scout routes carefully while others prepare tools, preserve food, and protect fire. Children and elders travel slowly. Injuries complicate everything, and winter offers no patience. The old woman tending the fire gestures toward you suddenly. "Come." You kneel beside her. She places several dark stones near your hands, alongside dried moss and shredded bark. Fire-making supplies. Important ones. Dan says, "You carry these tomorrow," she says quietly. The responsibility feels enormous down immediately. Prehistoric groups likely treated experienced firekeepers with deep respect. Some researchers suspect certain individuals specialized in maintaining embers during long journeys. Losing fire during freezing migration could become catastrophic within hours. No pressure, just the survival of everyone you know. The old woman notices your expression and almost smiles. "Keep them dry," she mutters. Simple advice, potentially life-saving advice. Outside, daylight fades earlier than expected beneath thickening clouds. Snow begins falling again, soft at first. Tiny flakes drift through pale air almost peacefully. Then heavier winds arrive. Within minutes, the valley changes completely. Snow swirls violently around stone outcroppings, while visibility shrinks across open ground. Hunters secure animal hides over shelter gaps quickly, before stronger gusts tear them loose. Children gather near the fire, instinctively. Storms during the Ice Age could become terrifying events. Sudden temperature drops, blizzards, and freezing winds likely trapped groups for days without reliable food access. Some scientists believe entire migrations may have vanished during severe winter weather shifts. The storm outside deepens steadily. Inside the cave, orange firelight flickers across exhausted faces. Smoke curls lazily toward darkness overhead, while snow hisses softly against stone outside. Someone begins humming quietly, a low, repetitive sound. Soon another joins, then another. No instruments, no words, just tired human voices moving gently beside the fire. The sound feels strangely comforting in the darkness. Archaeologists discovered ancient bone flutes dating back tens of thousands of years, suggesting music accompanied humans long before written language. Some experts think rhythmic sounds strengthened social bonds during difficult conditions, or maybe silence simply felt too frightening. The storm continues for hours. At one point, you nearly fall asleep beside the flames, before sudden shouting erupts near the entrance. A hunter rushes inside, covered entirely in snow. There's more smoke, he says breathlessly. The shelter becomes silent again. Where? He points north. Beyond the ridge. Nobody speaks immediately. Another clan nearby changes everything. Possible trade, possible violence, possible competition for already disappearing food. The clan leader stares into the fire a long moment before finally rising slowly to his feet. Tomorrow, scouts will travel north, and somewhere beyond the storm, hidden behind snow and darkness, strangers wait beside their own uncertain fires. Section 3. The storm weakens sometime before dawn. You notice the silence first. No screaming wind. No snow striking stone walls. Only the soft crackling of fire and the slow breathing of sleeping bodies wrapped beneath heavy hides. For a few moments, the cave feels peaceful. Then you remember the smoke beyond the northern ridge. Sleep becomes impossible after that. The clan rises slowly as pale morning light creeps through the shelter entrance. Frost covers parts of the cave floor, now sparkling faintly beside scattered animal bones and sleeping furs. The fire survived the night again, though barely. A thin column of smoke climbs lazily toward the dark ceiling. The old woman glances at the embers immediately, always checking, always worried. You chew dried strips of rabbit meat that taste mostly of smoke and saltless fat. Nearby, the wounded scout sharpens his spear while hiding discomfort behind stubborn silence. His injured leg still trembles occasionally beneath wrapped fur. Nobody mentions it. Weakness feels dangerous lately. Outside, the valley looks transformed. Fresh snow blankets everything, smoothly covering old footprints and frozen brush alike. Sunlight reflects sharply across the ground, almost blinding after yesterday's storm. Beautiful and deeply deceptive. Snow hides dangers well. Thin ice, buried stones, predator tracks, sometimes bodies too. 3 scouts prepare for the northern journey near the shelter entrance. Thick fur coverings hang heavily across their shoulders, while stone knives rest against leather cords at their waists. Spears stand beside them, carefully wrapped with fresh sinew bindings. The clan leader chooses you unexpectedly. You come too. Your stomach tightens immediately. Not fear exactly. Something colder. You gather supplies quietly, while others avoid unnecessary conversation. Dried moss for fire. Flint scraper. Bone needle. A small pouch of frozen meat, hard enough to crack teeth. The little girl watches you carefully from beside the fire. Will you find food? She asks. You hesitate. Maybe. Children in prehistoric groups probably understood hardship earlier than modern people imagine. Skeletal evidence suggests many Ice Age children experienced periods of malnutrition during harsh winters. Yet ancient communities also protected young members intensely, whenever possible. Survival depended on future generations. Even exhausted humans understood that. The northern wind bites hard once you leave the shelter behind. Snow crunches sharply beneath layered hide boots while freezing air burns your throat with each breath. The valley stretches endlessly below, pale and silent beneath weak morning sunlight. Nobody wastes words during travel. Energy matters too much. You climb steadily toward the ridge, while icy wind brushes loose snow across exposed rock. Frost gathers along fur edges near your face. Somewhere distant, ravens cry sharply against the empty sky. A bad sound, or maybe merely an honest one. The older scout leading the group suddenly kneels beside several shallow marks near exposed stone. He studies them carefully without speaking. Footprints, human, fresh enough to survive the storm. Your pulse quickens immediately. The prints continue northward between frozen trees. Whoever made them traveled lightly, perhaps carrying only spears and small supplies. One set appears smaller than the others. A child perhaps, or a woman. Historians still debate how different prehistoric groups interacted during difficult seasons. Some evidence points toward trade, shared shelter, and cooperation. Other discoveries suggest violent territorial conflict over hunting grounds and resources, probably depended on the winter, and the hunger. The forest thickens gradually as you continue north. Tall, dark pines block much of the sunlight, now casting long shadows across untouched snow. The smell changes too. Less open wind, more damp bark, and cold earth hidden beneath ice. You hear branches creaking overhead, then silence again. Every sound feels important here. The scouts stop suddenly beside a narrow stream, frozen solid beneath cloudy ice. One man crouches low, touching the surface carefully. Crack! A thin fracture spreads beneath his fingers. Too dangerous. The group moves farther upstream, searching for safer crossing points. You follow carefully, trying not to stare too long at the dark water barely visible beneath trapped ice. People vanish quickly in freezing rivers. Some scientists believe drowning posed enormous risks for Ice Age humans crossing winter landscapes. Ancient migration routes often depended on rivers, yet frozen surfaces could collapse without warning during temperature shifts. A terrible way to disappear. The older scout finally signals toward a fallen tree, stretching across the narrow stream. Snow covers the trunk unevenly, while ice glitters below. Open a spot on you, cross carefully. Halfway over you hear it, a sound behind you, soft, brief, like snow compressing beneath weight. You turn immediately. Nothing, only trees. The scout nearest you notices your expression. What? You shake your head slowly. Perhaps imagination, or perhaps not. The group continues deeper into forest shadows until a strange smell reaches you unexpectedly. Smoke, fresh smoke. Everyone freezes. The scent drifts clearly through cold air now. Burned wood, animal fat, something cooking perhaps. The scouts exchange silent glances before moving cautiously uphill through dense trees. Your heartbeat grows louder with every step. Ahead, faint gray smoke curls upward beyond a rocky slope. A camp, definitely human. The scouts crouch low behind snow-covered brush while studying the scene below. You carefully peer between frozen branches. 5 shelters stand within a narrow clearing protected by stone walls and heavy pine trees. Animal hides stretch across wooden frames blackened by smoke and weather. Several figures move slowly between small fires near the center. Not many, perhaps 15 people total. One woman scrapes an animal skin beside glowing embers, while 2 children carry branches toward stacked firewood. An older man sits near the edge of camp shaping something carefully from bone. Ordinary details, strangely comforting details. Then you notice the spears. Many spears, more than expected. The older scout studies the camp silently for several long moments. His expression reveals nothing. Finally, he gestures everyone backward away from the clearing. Retreat first, discuss later. Wise decision. As you quietly move downhill again, another sound drifts through the trees behind you. Singing, low voices moving together rhythmically beside distant firelight. Not threatening, almost sad. The melody follows briefly through frozen woods before fading entirely beneath wind and creaking branches. Nobody speaks until the camp disappears behind thick forest. Then the youngest scout exhales sharply. They look hungry. The older hunter nods once. So are we. No one answers after that. The journey back toward your valley feels longer somehow. Snow begins falling lightly again, while daylight slowly dims beneath gathering clouds. Your legs ache from cold and constant climbing. Still, your thoughts remain fixed on the northern camp, another clan surviving the same winter, another fire barely holding against darkness. You imagine their children asking the same questions beside smoke-filled shelters, their hunters worrying over disappearing herds, their elders staring into flames while storms howl outside. The realization feels strangely unsettling, because the frozen world suddenly seems smaller than before. Night approaches by the time your own shelter finally appears beyond rocky slopes. Smoke rises weakly into gray evening skies, while figures move near the entrance, waiting anxiously. The clan leader steps forward immediately. Well, the older scout removes snow from his fur slowly. There are people north of the ridge, he says to us. Silence spreads instantly across the group. Then comes the question everyone fears most. Friendly, the scout looks toward the darkening valley before answering quietly. They're hungry. And somehow that answer feels far more dangerous. Section 4. The word hungry follows everyone into sleep. It lingers in the smoke above the fire, hides inside the silence between breaths, and settles into the cold stone beneath your body. Even wrapped in heavy fur, you feel it there. Not only your own hunger, though, that gnaws steadily enough. The hunger of strangers. That feels different. By morning, the clan has already changed its rhythm. People move with quiet urgency, collecting tools, checking cordage, tying bundles of hide and bone. No one says aloud that the northern camp may become a threat. No one needs to. Fear works without speeches. Outside, the valley gleams beneath new snow. The storm has polished everything. Smooth, erasing yesterday's paths and softening the jagged edges of rock. The air smells clean at first, almost sweet, until smoke from the shelter drifts past your face. Then it smells like survival again. The clan leader stands near a line of disturbed snow below the cave. Beside him waits the woman everyone trusts when the ground becomes difficult to read. She is not the oldest hunter, nor the strongest, nor the loudest. She simply sees what others miss. Her name is spoken rarely. Respect does not always need volume. You have watched her follow a wounded reindeer across stones where no mark seemed visible. You have seen her pause beside bent grass, touch one broken twig, and predict an animal's direction before sunrise. Some call it skill. Some call it strangeness. One boy once whispered that she speaks to footprints. Nobody corrected him. She crouches now, fingers hovering above faint marks near the slope. Her fur hood hides most of her face. Only her eyes move slow and patient, studying snow shadow and pressure. These are not ours, she says. The clan leader bends closer. The tracks are shallow but clear enough after she points them out. Several prints approach from the north before turning away toward the frozen trees. Whoever made them came near during the night, very near. A cold feeling rises through your chest. The woman follows the trail without asking permission, and you move after her with two hunters. Snow muffles your steps, while the cave disappears behind you. The air feels still, but not peaceful, more like listening. She studies each print carefully, sometimes kneeling, sometimes standing motionless for long stretches. You begin to understand that tracking is not only seeing marks, it is seeing pauses, doubt, wait, fear, intention. Mainstream archaeology strongly supports the idea that prehistoric hunters possessed deep environmental knowledge. They understood animal migrations, seasonal plant cycles, weather shifts, and the behavior of predators across enormous landscapes. Without that knowledge, winter survival would have been nearly impossible. You look at one faint heel mark and see almost nothing. She sees a person hesitating. Rather unfair, really. The trail leads between black trees crusted with frost. Branches creak overhead in the cold. Now and then, snow falls from pine needles with soft little thumps. Your breath clouds in front of you, then vanishes among the trunks. After some time, the woman stops abruptly. She kneels beside a patch of churned snow near a fallen log. You see scattered prints crossing over one another, Human tracks, certainly, but also something larger and rounder. Wolf. The hunter beside you grips his spear. The woman touches the edge of one paw print gently, not hunting. She murmurs. You are not sure how she knows. She points toward the spacing of the marks. The wolves moved slowly, not rushing, not circling for attack. Following, perhaps, watching from a distance. Historians and archaeologists still debate when wolves first began moving closer to human camps in ways that eventually led toward domestication. Some argue it happened through scavenging near fires. Others suggest humans may have raised wolf pups much earlier than once believed. Nobody here uses such tidy words. You only know wolves have teeth and patience. The trail continues into a narrow hollow where the wind carries a sour animal smell. Old hide, frozen dung, damp fur beneath cold air. The woman lifts one hand for silence. You hear it then, a faint scraping sound. Not close, but near enough. The group lowers behind a ridge of snow-covered brush. Through the branches, you glimpse movement below. A lone figure digs at the frozen ground with a sharpened stick. Thin shoulders, ragged hide covering. Slow, desperate movements. A child, not from your clan. The child pries something from beneath the snow and stuffs it into a pouch. Roots, perhaps, or cached food hidden earlier by animals. Their hands look clumsy from cold. No adults appear nearby. The woman watches without moving. One hunter whispers stranger. The word carries weight. The child suddenly turns, sensing something. For one strange moment, their eyes meet yours through the branches. Wide, dark, terrified. Then the child runs. The hunters rise instinctively, but the woman snaps one hand outward. Number. Her voice is quiet but final. The child vanishes between trees, leaving a trail so obvious even you can follow it. Small prints, uneven spacing, panic written across snow. Your group remains still. A raven calls above you, harsh and lonely. The woman eventually exhales through her nose. Alone now, she says, but others close. You return to camp with heavier thoughts than before. The valley no longer feels empty. It feels watched from many directions. Human need moves through the woods now, quiet as wolves. Back at the cave, children gather near the entrance when they see you return. The little girl with red cheeks asks whether you found food. You shake your head, and she looks away quickly. She is learning not to hope too loudly. Inside, the old woman tends the fire, while strips of rabbit hide dry nearby. Smoke clings to the ceiling in wavering layers. Meltwater drips softly from stone, where warmth touches frost. The clan leader listens as the tracker explains what she found. A child from the northern camp came near during darkness. Wolves followed the same path. The strangers are hungry enough to send young ones searching beneath snow. Nobody speaks for a while. Then an older man mutters, "They will come again. Perhaps. Perhaps you would too." Late in the day, the tracker sits apart from the others, repairing a torn boot with sinew thread. You settle nearby, pretending to check your own cordage. She notices, of course. "What did the snow say?" you ask quietly. For a moment, she looks almost amused. That everyone is afraid. Simple enough, unhelpfully true. Snow begins falling again before evening. The flakes drift gently at first, catching orange light from the cave entrance. The world beyond the shelter fades into softness, hiding tracks, danger, and the path of the stranger child. Inside, bodies gather closer around the fire. Someone places the last rabbit bones into heated water, hoping to draw out a little more strength. The smell is thin but comforting. Burned wood pops softly. Fur brushes against stone. A child whispers in sleep. You lie awake listening to the storm build. Somewhere beyond the ridge, another child may be lying awake, too hungry beneath strange hides, listening to wolves move outside unfamiliar firelight. The thought does not warm you, but it keeps you human. Section 5. Snow falls for 3 straight days, not the violent kind driven sideways by screaming winds. This snow arrives softly, endlessly, almost politely. Thick white flakes drift from the gray sky without hurry covering stones. Branches, old footprints, and abandoned bones alike. The valley grows quieter with every passing hour. You begin measuring time differently now, not by sunlight, by firewood, by hunger, by how much smoke remains trapped near the cave ceiling before someone coughs awake. Inside the shelter, warmth survives only in small pockets near the flames. Everywhere else, cold presses against stone walls, patiently waiting for weakness. Animal hides hang drying beside the fire, filling the cave with the sharp scent of wet fur and smoke-darkened leather. The old woman feeds tiny branches into the embers carefully. Too much wood burns wastefully. Too little invites disaster. Several children sleep close together beneath layered skins, while adults sit nearby repairing tools in silence. Flint scrapes against stone rhythmically. Bone needles pass through hide with tiny clicking sounds. Nobody wastes idle hands during winter. Across the cave, the tracker studies a strip of bark covered with shallow cuts and markings. You once asked what the marks meant. She answered only remembering. Historians still debate how prehistoric humans tracked seasonal changes before written language existed. Some researchers believe certain groups used carved bones, lunar markings, or repeated symbols to follow migrations and changing weather patterns. Or perhaps ancient people simply remembered better, because forgetting carried consequences. You suspect memory sharpened quickly when mistakes meant freezing to death beside a river somewhere. A child suddenly wakes crying near the rear wall. Not loudly, just enough. His mother pulls him closer immediately, whispering softly into tangled hair while rocking beside the fire. The boy trembles beneath fur coverings even after waking. Bad dreams visit often lately. No one mocks them. Outside the cave entrance, twilight arrives early beneath the endless snowfall. The world beyond camp has nearly vanished now. Trees appear only as dark smudges through drifting white air. You step outside briefly with a bundle of broken branches under one arm. The cold hits differently tonight. Sharper, the kind that crawls through layered fur and settles directly into your joints. Your boots sink deep into fresh snow, while wind brushes icy grains across your face. Nearby, several hunters struggle dragging heavier wood toward the shelter. Their breathing sounds harsh in the freezing air. One slips briefly. Nobody laughs. The clan leader stands farther uphill again, staring north toward invisible ridges hidden behind snowfall. He does this often now, watching the direction of the strangers, watching the direction of hunger. You move toward him carefully. Can you still see the ridge, you ask? He squints through the snow. Number. Something about the answer feels unsettling. The world beyond the valley has disappeared entirely. You hear a distant howl somewhere far below the cliffs. Wolf. Another answers farther away. Then silence returns. Researchers studying Ice Age Europe believe wolves likely shadowed prehistoric camps regularly during winter months. Human hunters created opportunities for scavengers through discarded bones and weakened prey. Over many generations, cautious tolerance may have slowly replaced constant hostility. Right now, however, they simply sound cold and hungry, which feels relatable. Back inside, the smell of boiling bone broth fills the cave weakly. Thin grease circles float atop dark water inside a stone basin near the flames. Several people gather close, waiting quietly. The meal barely deserves the name. Still, warm liquid matters. The old hunter from earlier winters sits near the fire, sharpening a spear point with slow, deliberate strokes. Deep lines crease his weathered face. One eye remains clouded pale from an injury long ago. You settle nearby. After some time, he speaks without looking up. When I was young, winter swallowed an entire river. You glance toward him. He continues slowly. The ice broke beneath 30 people during migration. The cave grows quieter around his words. No survivors. He shakes his head once. Only floating spears. The fire cracks softly. Stories in prehistoric communities likely carried practical warnings, disguised as memory and myth. Oral traditions helped preserve dangerous locations. Migration routes, hunting knowledge, and seasonal patterns across generations. Some stories entertained, others kept people alive. The old hunter finally stops sharpening. "The river sounded safe," he murmurs. That sentence lingers unpleasantly afterward. Later that evening, snow suddenly slides from somewhere high above the cave entrance with a deep, rushing sound. Several children jerk awake immediately, while hunters grab weapons instinctively. Avalanche. Not close, but close enough. The earth itself feels dangerous during Ice Age winters. Heavy snow accumulation, unstable cliffs, freezing temperatures, and shifting ice created deadly environments, even without predators or starvation. Nature did not require anger to kill people, only indifference. The tracker returns from outside carrying an armful of frozen pine branches. Snow clings to her shoulders, while icy air follows her inside. She pauses immediately, listening. Everyone notices. What the clan leader asks quietly. She tilts her head slightly toward the entrance. At first you hear nothing beyond the storm. Then it comes again. A faint crunch. Footsteps outside. The cave stills completely. Hunters rise silently, with spears ready, while the fire crackles between tense shadows. Another crunch follows closer this time, muffled beneath snow. One step, then another. The tracker moves first toward the entrance. Carefully, slowly, you follow behind several others, until the storm-filled darkness becomes visible beyond the cave mouth. Snow swirls through pale evening light, while wind carries loose ice against stone. For a moment, nothing appears. Then a shape emerges through the white haze. Small, human, the child from the forest. They stand trembling several paces outside the shelter, wrapped in ragged hides, dusted heavily with snow. One arm clutches a bundle against their chest tightly. Nobody moves. The child looks terrified enough to run instantly. Yet hunger keeps them standing there. The tracker lowers her spear first. A dangerous gesture. The child slowly unwraps the bundle with stiff fingers. Inside rests meat. Not much. A small frozen leg from some animal catch. An offering, or perhaps a trade. Historians still argue how prehistoric groups managed exchanges between unfamiliar clans during resource shortages. Some evidence suggests gift-sharing reduced violence and strengthened seasonal alliances. Other findings hint such meetings remained deeply risky. Trust probably formed very slowly, especially in winter. The child lifts the meat slightly forward. No words, no smile, just fear and exhaustion beneath falling snow. The clan leader studies the child silently, while storm winds howl around the cave entrance. Behind you, children watch beside the firelight with enormous eyes. Finally, the old woman steps forward carrying a small bowl of warm broth. Steam curls gently upward into freezing air. The child stares at it cautiously, then takes one careful step closer. And somewhere beyond the storm-hidden ridge, two hungry clans begin circling the fragile possibility of mercy. Section 6. The child does not enter the cave immediately. They stand near the entrance, clutching the steaming bowl with both shaking hands, while snow gathers across tangled hair and worn fur coverings. The broth smells faintly of grease and smoke, thin enough to see through, yet precious enough that every person inside the shelter watches carefully. The child drinks slowly at first, then desperately. Warm liquid spills down their chin while they swallow too fast. The old woman says nothing. She simply waits beside the firelight, arms folded beneath heavy skins. No one lowers their weapons completely. Not yet. Outside, darkness thickens across the valley, while snow continues falling in soft, endless waves. The storm has swallowed nearly every sound except the restless wind pushing against stone. The child finally lowers the empty bowl. Their eyes remain fixed on the fire. You understand immediately. They are not staring at food anymore. They are staring at warmth. Historians believe prehistoric humans depended heavily on communal heat during severe winters. Archaeological evidence suggests many groups slept close together inside compact shelters, partly to preserve body warmth and conserve fuel resources. Comfort probably mattered too. Even ancient people must have understood the calming power of shared firelight after terrifying nights outdoors. The clan leader steps forward slowly. "Where are your people?" The child hesitates, then points north. No surprise there. "How many?" A pause follows. The child lifts both hands twice. 10 perhaps, maybe more. It is difficult to tell whether fear or language limits the answer. The tracker kneels nearby, studying the child carefully. Snow melts from the stranger's boots onto the cave floor in tiny, dark puddles. Their hands look painfully red from cold exposure. Too long outside. Much too long. The tracker notices something wrapped around the child's wrist. Braided grass cords threaded with tiny bird bones. Decoration, perhaps, or protection. Scholars still debate the meaning behind many prehistoric ornaments discovered in caves and burial sites. Beads, carved pendants, animal teeth, and painted shells may have symbolized identity, spirituality, status, or memory. Or maybe people simply wanted beauty during difficult lives. Honestly, that explanation feels perfectly reasonable. The old hunter near the fire gestures toward the meat offering now resting beside heated stones. "Where did this come from?" The child answers quietly for the first time. "Elk." The word sounds different in their accent, but understandable enough. Several adults exchange glances immediately. Elk means animals nearby. Animals mean survival. The clan leader crouches near the child carefully. "Your hunters found a herd." The child nods once. "Far north, then, beyond the ridge." Hope moves subtly through the shelter after that revelation. Not excitement exactly. More dangerous than excitement. Possibility. The tracker rises silently and steps toward the entrance again. Snow blows inward around her boots while darkness deepens outside. She should not return alone, she says. The clan leader studies the storm thoughtfully. Night travel feels reckless, but leaving a child outside during heavy snowfall feels worse. After several moments, he gestures toward you and another hunter. "Go with her." You gather your spear immediately, while the old woman presses warm stones wrapped in hide into your hands. Small traveling heat. Brief but valuable. The child watches nervously while your group prepares. Then the tracker offers them a fur strip filled with glowing embers. The child's expression changes instantly. Recognition. Respect. Fire carried through darkness means trust, or the beginning of it. You leave the shelter together moments later. Snow swirls heavily beyond the cave mouth, reducing the world to shifting gray shadows beneath moonless skies. Your boots sink deeply with each step, while icy wind claws at exposed skin. The child moves quickly despite exhaustion. Too quickly, perhaps. Fear still drives them. The tracker keeps close behind, while you and the other hunter follow several paces farther back, scanning the darkness constantly. Snow-covered trees loom around you like silent figures. Somewhere distant wolves howl again. Closer this time. The child hears them too. You notice the quickened breathing immediately. The tracker places one steady hand against the child's shoulder without speaking. Simple reassurance. Surprisingly effective. The northern ridge appears gradually through the snowfall after nearly an hour of difficult climbing. Beyond it, faint orange glows flicker weakly between distant trees. Another campfire. Small. Struggling. The child points toward it eagerly. You descend carefully through dense forest, where snow muffles every sound, except creaking branches overhead. Smoke reaches you before the camp itself appears. Wet wood smoke mixed with unwashed hides and old animal fat. A hungry camp smells different somehow. Thinner. You see the shelters moments later, smaller than expected. The fires burn low between rough hide structures, partially buried beneath snowdrifts. Several figures rise immediately once your group emerges from the darkness. Spears appear at once. So do frightened children. Everyone freezes. Firelight flickers across tense faces, while snow drifts silently through the clearing. The child rushes forward, speaking rapidly in their own dialect. One exhausted woman pulls them close instantly. Relief spreads through the camp almost painfully. You understand that feeling. The tracker lowers her spear again. Slowly, cautiously, several strangers do the same. Not all. One broad-shouldered hunter continues, gripping his weapon tightly, while studying your group with open suspicion. His cheeks appear hollow beneath tangled beard hair. Starvation leaves marks quickly. The tracker points toward the ember bundle, still glowing faintly in the child's hands. Murmurs ripple quietly through the strangers. An older woman steps forward from near the fire. Bone beads hang from braided gray hair, while heavy fur coverings drag through snow behind her. Her eyes settle immediately on the glowing embers, then on the tracker. No words pass between them initially, only understanding. Winter has already stripped away unnecessary things. The older woman finally gestures toward the fire. Invitation, cautious but real. You kneel beside unfamiliar flames while strangers watch from every direction. The heat feels weaker than your own campfire. Poor fuel, perhaps, or dwindling supplies. Nearby, something simmers inside a cracked stone basin. The smell barely resembles food. Tree bark, maybe. Boiled roots. A desperate meal. Archaeologists discovered evidence suggesting some prehistoric groups consumed unusual famine foods during difficult winters, including groundbark mosses and heavily processed roots. Survival diets became remarkably creative when reliable hunting failed. Human beings can endure tandumbra. Astonishing the things. A small boy near the fire stares openly at your spear tip, polished from fresh flint. Another child hides behind their mother's shoulder, chewing slowly on dried leather strips, softened near the flames. The broad-shouldered hunter finally speaks. "Elk move east," he says carefully. The tracker nods once. Both groups understand immediately what this means. Neither clan can survive alone much longer. Outside the fragile ring of firelight, darkness presses heavily against the camp. Snow continues falling through black trees while unseen predators wander the frozen wilderness beyond. Yet for tonight, at least, 2 separate fires burn close enough to share their warmth. And in the prehistoric world, that alone feels extraordinary. Section 7. You return to your own cave after midnight. The walk back feels longer, because hope now travels with you, and hope is surprisingly heavy. Snow keeps falling through the darkness, softening the world, until trees, rocks, and ridges blur into one pale, breathing shape. The ember bundle glows faintly beneath wrapped bark in the tracker's hands. Nobody speaks for a long time. Words might disturb the fragile thing just created. Behind you, the northern camp fades into storm and shadow. Ahead, your shelter waits below the southern ridge, where your own people sleep uneasily beside the fire. 2 clans now know the same truth. Elk move east. The information feels small. It is not. A herd can mean meat hides, bones, sinew, fat tools, warmth, and weeks of life. A herd can mean children. Stop crying from hunger for a while. A herd can mean the old survive long enough to tell another story. Mainstream archaeology shows that large Ice Age animals were not only food sources. Their bodies supplied raw materials for clothing shelters, containers, weapons, glue, and fuel. One successful hunt could reshape an entire season. No wonder everyone gets dramatic about hoofprints. Honestly, the elk are carrying the entire plot now. By dawn, both clans begin preparing. The northern strangers arrive carefully near your cave after sunrise, moving through gray light, like ghosts wrapped in battered fur. They bring 5 hunters, the bone-beaded elder, and the child who carried meat through the storm. Their faces look wary, but their eyes keep returning to your stronger fire. Your own clan watches from the entrance. Spears remain visible. Trust apparently lacks supervision. The clan leader and the northern elder sit beside the flames, while others gather around without crowding too close. The tracker kneels between them, drawing marks into ash with a charred stick. Ridge, river, forest, eastward path. The northern hunter points to one line, then makes 2 fingers walking across his palm. He speaks a few words your people only partly understand. The tracker listens patiently, then repeats the meaning in simpler gestures. The elk passed 2 days ago, maybe 3. They traveled through low fog beyond the frozen river. The old hunter grunts softly. Hard ground there. The tracker nods. and broken ice. Wonderful, because survival clearly needed obstacles with personality. Historians still argue how Ice Age groups coordinated complex hunts without shared formal languages across different bands. Gesture mimicry, shared ecological knowledge, and repeated seasonal contact may have allowed cooperation across dialects. The exact balance remains uncertain. In the cave, however, communication becomes practical. A pointed finger means danger. A lowered spear means wait. A hungry child means hurry. The hunting party leaves before the sun rises high. You go with them carrying a spear, a flint knife, and a hide pouch filled with dried moss for fire. The tracker leads at the front beside the northern hunter, who first spoke of elk. Their partnership begins without ceremony. Snow crunches beneath many feet as the group descends toward the frozen river. Breath steams from every mouth. Furs brush together softly. Leather cords creak beneath the weight of tools and bundled supplies. The air smells metallic with cold. Far ahead, ice fog waits low over the valley floor, turning the world into a pale curtain. Trees vanish and reappear through it slowly. The frozen river glows dull gray beneath drifting whiteness. You remember the old hunter's story, only floating spears. The group spreads out cautiously before stepping onto the river's edge. The tracker tests the ice with her spear shaft. The northern hunter listens, head tilted slightly, as if ice might confess weakness. A sharp crack sounds nearby. Everyone stops. The sound fades beneath fog. No one breathes for a moment. Then the tracker gestures left, toward a narrow place where snow rests thicker near reeds. One by one, you cross behind her, placing each foot where hers is already pressed. The ice groans softly beneath the group's weight. Your skin prickles under fur. Cold rises from below like a living thing. On the far bank, several hunters kneel immediately to study the snow. Tracks appear faintly beneath fresh powder. Long oval prints, drag marks from hooves, disturbed crust where animals scraped for buried grass. Elk. The northern hunter touches one print and lifts his fingers to smell them. He smiles slightly. Fresh enough. The party moves into the ice fog. Sound becomes strange there. Spears knock softly against branches, yet the noise seems distant. Your own breathing sounds loud inside your hood. Every shape ahead could be tree, animal, rock, or danger. The smell of elk reaches you gradually. Warm fur, dung, trampled snow, alive. The tracker raises her fist. Everyone sinks down. Through the fog, you see movement at last. Dark bodies drift among pale trees. Large and slow, heads lowered toward frozen ground. Antlers appear briefly like twisted branches before dissolving into white air. The herd is real. Relief almost weakens your knees. Then the northern hunter points toward the rear. One elk limps. Older. Perhaps. Injured maybe. The choice forms silently. Predators and hunters both understand weakness. It is not noble. It is efficient. Winter leaves little room for sentimental menus. Several hunters begin circling wide through the trees, moving downwind to avoid carrying human scent toward the herd. You remain with the tracker behind a ridge of snow-covered brush. The plan depends on panic. Drive the herd toward the narrow gap between rocks. Separate the limping elk. Strike quickly before fog hides everything again. Simple plans are often terrifying. A raven calls from somewhere above. The elk lift their heads. Too soon. The northern hunter curses softly in his own language, which probably means exactly what you think it means. Then everything happens at once. A hunter shouts from the far side of the fog. Another bangs spear shafts against frozen trunks. The herd erupts into motion, hooves thundering against hard snow beneath the muffling mist. The sound fills your body, deep, violent, alive. Dark shapes rush between pale trees, while snow sprays behind them. You grip your spear until your fingers ache. The limping elk breaks from the others exactly as hoped, stumbling toward the rocky gap. The tracker runs. You follow. Your boots slide across icy ground while cold air tears at your lungs. The elk crashes through brush ahead, sides heaving breath, bursting white from its mouth. Two hunters appear from the left, shouting and waving spears. The animal turns sharply, toward you. For one suspended moment, its enormous dark eye meets yours through fog. Not evil, not a monster, only frightened and desperate to live. Then training hunger and winter take control. You brace your spear with both hands, while the tracker strikes from the side. Another hunter drives forward from behind. The elk collapses heavily into snow, with a final shuddering breath that vanishes into the fog. Silence returns too quickly. Everyone stands motionless. Even successful hunts carry sadness. The tracker lowers her head, briefly touching the animal's neck with 2 fingers. The northern hunter does the same. Perhaps thanks, perhaps habit, perhaps something older than words. Some scholars suggest ritual gestures around hunted animals may have existed very early in human history. Others warn that archaeological evidence cannot prove emotion or belief from bones alone. Still, repeated care around animal remains hints at meaning beyond simple butchery. You cannot know. You only feel the cold, the steam, and the enormous relief. Soon knives appear. Work begins immediately. Meat must be cut before deep cold stiffens everything completely. Hide must be removed carefully. Sinew must be saved. Bones must be broken later for marrow and grease. Nothing can be wasted. The smell grows thick in the icy air, warm and animal beneath smoke, carried from a small emergency fire. Several hunters melt snow nearby, while others pack meat into hide bundles. Your arm now enter. From Baekyo quickly. Nobody stops. By late afternoon, the fog thins enough to reveal pale sunlight above the valley. The herd has vanished eastward, leaving trampled paths behind. The hunters load themselves heavily with meat fat, hide and bone. The return journey becomes slow, but no one complains. When the cave entrance finally appears beyond the slope, children rush forward before adults hold them back. They see the bundles. They understand. A sound rises from both clans together, not quite cheering, not quite crying. The old woman closes her eyes beside the fire. The little girl smiles for the first time in days. Tonight, the cave smells of roasting meat with hide smoke and impossible relief. People sit closer than before, strangers and kin sharing warmth around one stronger flame. Outside, winter still waits, but for one night, hunger steps back from the firelight. Section 8. The smell of cooked meat changes the cave completely. For the first time in many days, smoke carries something rich beneath it. Fat drips against heated stones, with soft sizzling sounds, while strips of elk meat roast above the flames on sharpened branches. Children sit upright, instead of curled beneath hides. Even exhausted faces seem less hollow in the firelight. Hunger loosens its grip slowly, not kindly, just enough. The northern clan remains through the evening, though nobody officially invites them to stay. The storm outside strengthens again after sunset, making travel dangerous. Snow hisses across the cave entrance, while darkness swallows the valley beyond. So 2 clans gather around one fire. Carefully, you sit near the rear wall, sharpening a flint blade, while watching strangers learn the shape of your shelter. The northern children stare openly at hanging tools and stacked hides near the entrance. One little boy cannot stop looking at the stronger flames. Warmth attracts people the way rivers attract animals, naturally. The old woman overseeing the fire notices everything. She watches how much meat strangers take. She watches where they place their spears. She watches who sleeps closest to the entrance. Firekeepers notice survival details others miss. Historians believe many prehistoric shelters became highly organized spaces, despite appearing simple to modern eyes. Sleeping positions, food storage, tool placement, and fire maintenance likely followed social patterns developed over generations. Chaos wastes energy. Winter punishes waste. The tracker sits beside the northern elder near the flames. Between them rests a flat stone, covered in charred marks and tiny bits of ochre. The elder removes several objects from a leather pouch slowly. Shell beads, small carved bones, a polished fox tooth hanging from braided cord. Children inch closer immediately. Even adults watch with interest. The elder lifts one shell bead toward the firelight. Pale lines spiral across its surface beautifully, despite age. You know the sea lies impossibly far from this frozen valley. Yet here rests proof someone traveled there once. Archaeologists have discovered prehistoric trade objects carried astonishing distances across Ice Age landscapes. Marine shells, rare stones, pigments, and crafted ornaments often appeared hundreds of miles from their natural sources. Ancient humans apparently enjoyed collecting unusual things, which honestly feels reassuringly familiar. The elder notices your attention and places the shell into your palm briefly. Smooth, cold, strangely delicate compared to the brutal winter outside. You hand it back carefully. Nearby hunters from both clans begin exchanging quiet stories through gestures, broken words, and shared experience. One reenacts slipping through thin river ice using dramatic arm movements. Another imitates a furious boar charging downhill. Laughter finally appears, small at first, then easier. The sound feels almost unfamiliar after so many tense nights. Children drift asleep gradually beside full stomachs, while adults continue eating slowly, savoring warmth and grease. Bone broth thickens in heated basins near the fire. Melted fat coats lips and fingers alike. No one wastes even a. Outside, wolves howl again somewhere beyond the cliffs. Closer now. Several strangers glance toward the entrance uneasily. The northern hunter with hollow cheeks mutters something darkly humorous in his own language. Though you miss most words, his meaning becomes obvious when he points toward the roasting meat. The wolves smell dinner too. A younger hunter laughs harder than necessary. Perhaps relief does that to people. As the night deepens, the old hunter with the clouded eye begins speaking beside the flames. His voice remains rough from cold air and old smoke. Once he says slowly, winter lasted nearly 3 summers. The cave quiets immediately. You have heard fragments of this story before, never the full telling. The old hunter stares into the flames, while shadows flicker across his weathered face. No birds returned, he murmurs. The rivers stayed hard. Trees cracked from cold before dawn. One northern child edges closer toward the fire unconsciously. When I was young, winter swallowed an entire river. We followed mammoths north, he continues. Foolish mistake. The tracker listens carefully now. Even she has gone still. Historians still debate the severity of certain Ice Age climate shifts, remembered through oral traditions. Sudden cold periods likely devastated hunting routes and forced migrations across enormous distances. Some ancient stories may preserve distorted memories of real environmental disasters. Human memory stretches surprisingly far when fear preserves it. The old hunter gestures toward the cave walls. We lost half the clan before spring. Silence follows. Only crackling fire and distant wind fill the darkness afterward. Then the northern elder speaks quietly for the first time in many minutes. She points upward. Moon, stars. Then she spreads her fingers outward slowly, changing seasons, changing routes. The tracker nods in understanding. Ancient people likely relied heavily on skies for timing migrations and seasonal movement. Lunar cycles, star positions, and shifting daylight patterns may have guided travel long before written calendars existed. You glance toward the blocked cave entrance instinctively. Hard to imagine stars beyond all that snow. Later, while most people sleep, you step outside briefly with a bundle of firewood beneath one arm. The storm weakened again. Snow drifts quietly beneath pale moonlight, now visible through scattered clouds. The valley glows silver, beautiful enough to feel unreal. Your breath rises slowly into freezing air, while distant forests remain black against the snowy landscape. For a moment, the world seems peaceful. Then you notice movement below the slope, several dark shapes crossing the valley. Wolves, at least 6. They move silently across moonlit snow with frightening smoothness. One pauses briefly, lifting its nose toward the cave. Moonlight catches pale eyes before the animal continues onward. You remain perfectly still. So does the wolf. For one strange moment, both species simply observe each other across frozen silence. Researchers studying early wolf domestication often wonder whether ancient humans and wolves first recognized similarities before hostility softened. Both hunted cooperatively. Both protected young fiercely. Both survived through social bonds and endurance. Right now, however, that wolf mostly resembles sharp teeth wearing fur. The pack disappears into darkness eventually. You exhale slowly afterward. Inside the cave, warmth strikes your face immediately upon returning. The smell of smoke and roasted meat wraps around you almost heavily now. Bodies sleep close together across the shelter floor, and something subtle has changed. The northern strangers no longer feel entirely separate from your own people. Not family, not yet, but no longer unknown. Near the fire, the child who carried meat through the storm sleeps beside your little red-cheeked girl from earlier. Somewhere during the evening, they exchanged bone beads tied around thin cords. A tiny trade, a tiny trust. The old woman notices you watching them. Winter makes people choose, she says softly. You glance toward her. Choose what? She feeds another branch carefully into glowing embers, whether fear is stronger than hunger. Outside, snow continues falling across the ancient valley, while wolves move silently through dark forests below. But inside the cave, 2 clans breathe beside the same fire, and for tonight at least the fire holds. Section 9. Morning arrives beneath a sky the color of old ash. The storm finally passes during the night, leaving the valley buried beneath fresh snow that sparkles faintly beneath weak sunlight. Outside the cave, the world appears clean again, untouched. Peaceful enough to fool anyone, foolish enough to trust appearances. Inside the shelter, reality smells different. Smoke, wet fur, old blood from butchered elk, and hunger returning already. The successful hunt fed both clans well last night, but winter teaches cruel mathematics. One animal disappears quickly among many mouths. The roasted meat hanging beside the fire looks smaller this morning. Everyone notices. No one mentions it. Several northern hunters prepare to leave shortly after dawn. Their shelters beyond the ridge still require repair, and their own fires cannot survive long without tending. Yet departure feels strangely uncomfortable now. People adjusted to shared warmth faster than expected. The tracker crouches near the cave entrance, studying the weather, while snowlight reflects sharply across her face. Beside her, the northern elder ties fresh leather strips around cracked boots, using careful, practiced motions. You watch the 2 women communicate mostly through gestures again. Shared knowledge rarely needs many words. The little girl from your clan sits beside the stranger child near the fire, threading tiny bones onto cord together. Occasionally they exchange sounds that almost resemble language. Mostly they laugh quietly whenever one says something confusing. Children adapt faster than adults, probably always have. Historians believe contact between different prehistoric groups may have played a major role in spreading tools, survival techniques, and social customs across enormous regions. Cultural exchange likely happened gradually through migration or intermarriage, and seasonal cooperation, though right now it mostly looks like children inventing games beside a smoky fire. Far less dramatic. The old woman distributing morning broth suddenly pauses. Too quiet. You notice it immediately afterward, too. No coughing. No movement from the rear sleeping area. The old hunter with the clouded eye remains motionless beneath his fur coverings. The old woman sets the bowl aside slowly. Several people glance toward him now. The tracker crosses the shelter first, kneeling beside the old hunter carefully. Her hand touches his shoulder once. No response. The fire crackles softly. Children stop whispering. You realize the entire cave has gone silent, except for drifting smoke and melting snow, dripping somewhere deeper inside the stone. The tracker lowers her eyes. He is gone. No one reacts dramatically. Perhaps winter leaves little strength for dramatic things. Still, the air changes instantly. The old hunter survived more winters than anyone else here. He remembered vanished rivers, ancient migration paths, storms nobody else living had seen. Children listened when he spoke, because memory itself felt valuable beside the fire. Now that memory has disappeared into silence. Archaeologists discovered evidence suggesting prehistoric humans cared deeply about death long before civilization emerged. Burials containing ochre beads, tools, flowers, and carefully positioned bodies reveal surprisingly emotional treatment of the dead. Ancient people grieved, not differently, just without words written afterward. The northern elder rises slowly and approaches the body. She removes a small fox tooth charm from around her neck and places it gently beside the old hunter's folded hands. No one objects. The gesture feels understood immediately. Outside wind brushes lightly across the valley, while pale daylight spreads over untouched snow. Inside the cave, several hunters begin preparing the body quietly. Work remains necessary, even beside sorrow. The old hunter's fur coverings are replaced carefully with cleaner hides. His spear rests beside him. A small pouch of flint tools joins the bundle afterward. One child asks softly, "Why give him tools?" Nobody answers immediately. Finally, the old woman speaks, so he remembers himself. You glance toward him. He continues slowly. The ice broke beneath 30 people during migration. The cave grows quieter around his words. Very hard work. Frozen soil resists everything. You help clear snow beside the grave, while your breath pours heavily into cold air. Nearby, the northern hunters assist without being asked. Shared labor forms quietly now between both groups. The tracker notices, says nothing. The grave remains shallow because winter refuses deeper digging. Stones line the bottom carefully before the old hunter is lowered inside, wrapped in thick hides. Snowflakes drift gently through pale air onto the burial site. No speeches follow, only silence. Then the old woman kneels beside the grave and scatters red ochre powder across the hides. The bright color stains snow like fading firelight. Ochre appears in many prehistoric burial sites across the world, sometimes called symbolic blood or sacred earth by later researchers. Historians still argue what ancient people believed the color represented. Life perhaps, warmth maybe, or memory refusing to disappear completely. The little girl steps forward next. She places a tiny carved bone bead into the grave awkwardly, before retreating quickly toward the others. The stranger child watches carefully, then removes one braided grass cord from their wrist and adds it beside the bead. Something tightens painfully in your chest then, not sadness alone. Recognition. The grave is covered slowly afterward with stone and packed snow. Wind already begins softening its edges almost immediately. Winter wastes no time reclaiming things. By late afternoon, both clans return quietly toward the cave. Smoke rises steadily from the fire inside, while darkness gathers once more across distant forests. The valley looks enormous again, after standing beside one small grave in all that white emptiness. Inside the shelter, people settle near the flame, without speaking much. Grief changes movement somehow. Slower gestures, longer silences, more staring into firelight. The northern elder eventually removes a bone flute from her travel pouch. Long, smooth, beautifully carved. Without ceremony, she begins playing softly beside the flames. The sound barely resembles modern music. Low, wavering notes drift through smoke-filled darkness slowly enough to feel almost dreamlike. Children grow still listening. Even the hunters stop sharpening tools. Archaeologists uncovered ancient flutes made from bird bone and mammoth ivory, dating back over 40,000 years. Music may have accompanied rituals, storytelling, grief celebration, or simple companionship during harsh Ice Age winters. The melody inside this cave now feels like all those things together. Outside, darkness thickens over the frozen valley, while wolves howl somewhere far below the cliffs. Snow drifts quietly across the old hunter's grave beneath pale evening skies. Inside the shelter, strangers and kin sit shoulder to shoulder beside the fire, listening to ancient music rise into smoke. And for a little while, nobody feels entirely alone against the winter. Section 10. The valley grows louder after the burial, not with voices, with weather. Wind returns from the eastern cliffs during the night, pushing hard against the cave entrance, until loose snow swirls across the shelter floor in pale ribbons. The fire snaps and bends beneath sudden drafts while sleeping bodies pull tighter beneath layered hides. Winter never stays still for long. You wake several times before dawn, listening to the mountain breathe. Ice cracks somewhere high above the valley walls, with deep booming sounds that echo through stone like distant thunder. Meltwater drips faintly in hidden places beneath the cliffs, then freezes again before sunrise. The world shifts constantly here, even when it appears frozen solid. By morning, the northern clan prepares to leave. Their children stand reluctantly near the fire, while adults secure hide bundles across their shoulders. Meat from the elk hunt hangs wrapped in thick fur beside sharpened tools and carefully protected embers. The little girl from your clan hands the stranger child another tiny carved bead before departure. No words, just exchange. The tracker watches quietly from near the entrance. You will follow the elk east, the northern elder asks through broken shared words. The clan leader nods once. When weather softens, the elder glances toward the dark sky outside. That may take time, an unpleasant truth. Historians believe Ice Age winters often trapped human groups in temporary shelters far longer than intended. Sudden storms, unstable rivers, heavy snow, and shifting prey routes could delay migrations for dangerous stretches of time. Nature controlled every schedule, rather rude of it honestly. The northern clan disappears into drifting snow shortly afterward, leaving the cave strangely empty despite the crowded shelter. Their absence lingers beside the fire, where extra sleeping spaces remain warm for a while, then slowly cool. Life continues immediately because it must. Hunters inspect damaged spear shafts. The old woman organizes drying meat strips carefully above smoke. Children gather snow in stone basins for melting water. Near the rear wall, the tracker sharpens a long flint blade until its edge reflects firelight. You step outside carrying bundled branches beneath one arm. Cold air grips your lungs sharply. The valley stretches silent below the cliffs, buried beneath endless white, broken only by dark trees, and the frozen ribbon of river farther east. Thin clouds drift across weak sunlight overhead. Then you notice movement. Birds. A small cluster circles above the eastern ridge, briefly before vanishing behind distant stone slopes. The tracker appears to appear beside you silently. You saw them too, she says. You nod. Carrion birds. Something died eastward. Or many things. The tracker studies the horizon thoughtfully before returning inside without another word. By midday, preparations begin again. This time for scouting. The elk herd traveled east beyond the river several days earlier. If the weather allows movement soon, your clan will need safer routes through unfamiliar ground. Ice can collapse. Snow can hide ravines. Hungry predators may already follow weakened animals. Knowledge matters before migration. You join the scouting party alongside 3 hunters in the tracker. Everyone carries lighter loads this time. Spears, flint blades, embers wrapped carefully inside bark containers. Always fire. The frozen river groans beneath weak afternoon sunlight, while your group crosses carefully along a narrower section downstream. Snow squeaks beneath each step in the bitter cold. Wind sweeps loose crystals across the ice like drifting smoke. Halfway across, one hunter freezes suddenly. He kneels low, points ahead. Tracks, many of them. Elk certainly passed through recently, their hooves carving deep patterns into packed snow along the far bank. But larger prints overlap them now. Round, heavy, wide-spaced. The tracker studies them silently. Mammoth, she says. Even the wind feels quieter afterward. Woolly mammoths still roam parts of this frozen world during your lifetime, though less commonly now. Archaeologists uncovered evidence showing prehistoric humans hunted mammoths carefully using coordinated group strategies, stone weapons, and landscape traps. A dangerous food source, very dangerous. You continue eastward through dense pine forest, where snow hangs heavily from branches overhead. The smell changes again here. Less smoke, more frozen sap, and damp bark hidden beneath ice. Then another scent reaches you gradually. Rot. The birds were telling the truth. The scouting party slows immediately while everyone grips weapons tighter. Ahead, dark shapes cluster among trees near a shallow ravine. Ravens scatter upward as you approach. The mammoth lies partially buried beneath snow and broken branches below the slope. One enormous tusk curves upward from the white ground like pale moonlight. Frost covers thick brown fur, already stiffening in the cold. Dead several days, perhaps. Maybe longer, but not untouched. Wolf tracks circle the carcass everywhere. So do lion prints, huge ones. You suddenly understand why the forest felt so quiet. Predators claim this place now. The hunters remain uphill, while the tracker climbs cautiously down the ravine edge. Steam no longer rises from the carcass. One massive leg bends unnaturally beneath frozen weight. Blood stains nearby snow, dark rust red beneath drifting powder. No obvious spear wounds. The mammoth may have fallen naturally, or slipped crossing ice. Historians still debate how often prehistoric humans actively hunted mammoths versus scavenging animals already weakened by injury age or weather. Large-scale hunts certainly occurred, but natural deaths may also have provided valuable opportunities. Honestly, standing beside one now scavenging sounds considerably less terrifying. The tracker examines the snow carefully around the carcass before looking upward. Lions nearby, she says quietly. No one argues. Fresh scat near the ravine edge confirms it immediately. Sharp, bitter animal scent clings to the freezing air. One hunter grips his spear harder while scanning the dark trees surrounding the clearing. You suddenly feel very exposed. The mammoth itself feels impossibly enormous up close. Its thick fur ripples beneath gathered snow, while broad feet sink deep into frozen mud beneath the ice crust. One clouded eye remains half open beneath frost, strangely human somehow. Or maybe grief simply changes how things look. The scouting party debates quickly through gestures and low voices. The carcass contains enormous amounts of meat fat. Hide and bone, if predators can be driven away safely. A tempting possibility. A deadly possibility. Then the tracker notices something else. Marks carved into a nearby tree trunk. Human marks. Fresh. 3 shallow lines crossing one another diagonally. A warning, perhaps. Or a claim. Someone already discovered the mammoth. Perhaps several groups. The atmosphere changes immediately. Food this valuable draws attention faster than smoke. Outside the ravine, ravens circle overhead impatiently, while distant wolves howl somewhere beyond the forest. Snow begins falling again lightly through dark branches. The tracker rises slowly from beside the carcass. "We leave," she says. One younger hunter protests instantly. "So much meat." "And lions," she replies. "Fair point." The scouting party retreats carefully uphill without further argument. No one turns their back fully toward the ravine until trees hide the mammoth completely from view. Even then, tension lingers. You keep expecting movement between the trunks behind you. Golden eyes, perhaps. Silence follows your group all the way back toward the river. As evening approaches, pale sunlight fades behind thickening clouds once more. Snow drifts softly across your returning tracks, while the cave fire appears faintly ahead through gathering darkness. Warmth waits there. Safety, perhaps. But somewhere eastward beyond the frozen river, a dead mammoth lies beneath falling snow, while predators and hungry humans slowly gather around it. And winter patient as ever watches all of them equally. Section 11. That night nobody sleeps deeply. The mammoth remains east of the river like a thought nobody can put aside. Even beside the warmth of the cave fire, you feel its presence waiting somewhere beyond the snowfields. So much meat. so much danger. The two things often travel together. Wind rattles against the cave entrance while sparks drift upward through smoke-dark air. Children sleep curled beneath thick hides, though several wake often from coughing or restless dreams. Hunger eased briefly after the elk hunt, but winter already presses forward again, always advancing. Near the fire, the tracker studies a fresh piece of wood charcoal between her fingers. She occasionally scratches small lines across flat stone while thinking. Routes, perhaps. Distances. Rivers. Dangerous places. Memory made visible. The clan leader sits nearby, repairing a spear binding with strips of wet sinew. His hands move steadily despite exhaustion. Across from him, the old woman feeds the fire branch by branch, guarding the embers with almost sacred patience. Without warning, a loud crack echoes outside. Everyone stiffens immediately. Another follows. Not ice this time. Tree limbs. Heavy movement in deep snow. Hunters rise silently, spears ready. Firelight flickers across tense faces, while wind carries another sound through the darkness beyond the entrance. Breathing. Deep. Slow. Very large. The tracker moves first toward the cave mouth, while others follow carefully behind. Snow swirls outside beneath pale moonlight, breaking through scattered clouds. For several moments, you see nothing beyond drifting white air. Then a shape emerges downhill, massive shoulders, thick fur silvered by frost. A bison. The animal moves slowly across the valley below the shelter, pushing through deep snow with heavy exhaustion. Steam pours from its nostrils into freezing air. One horn appears broken near the base. Injured, perhaps dying already. The hunters remain motionless, watching it pass. Nobody attacks. Not now. Large prey at night invites disaster. Darkness hides cliffs, unstable snow predators, and confusion. Prehistoric hunters likely preferred carefully controlled situations whenever possible, because even minor injuries could become deadly during winter. Besides, everyone still remembers the mammoth. The bison eventually disappears into snowy darkness, while silence settles over the valley again. One child stirs awake behind you. "Did you kill it?" He whispers sleepily. No, someone answers softly. The boy seems relieved. Interesting. You return toward the fire, where warmth immediately fogs your face with melted frost. The tracker remains near the entrance longer than the others, staring eastward beyond invisible ridges. You know what she is thinking. The mammoth changes things. By morning, arguments begin quietly, not shouting. Worse than shouting, controlled disagreement. Some hunters believe the clan should attempt harvesting meat from the mammoth before predators strip it clean. Others insist the carcass already belongs to lions and wolves now. One injured hunter points out another harsh truth. Other humans may already travel there too. The northern elder arrives unexpectedly before midday, with two companions carrying wrapped bundles of dried roots. Snow clings heavily to their boots and shoulders after the difficult journey through fresh drifts. Her timing feels intentional. She listens while the clan debates near the fire. Then she says one word, "Together." Silence follows. The tracker studies her carefully. The elder points eastward. Mammoth enough for many. She pauses, but not alone. The cave grows quiet again, except for crackling flames and soft dripping meltwater. Cooperation between clans sounds sensible beside a warm fire. Less sensible beside starving predators. Historians believe temporary alliances between prehistoric groups may have formed during unusually difficult seasons or major hunting opportunities. Shared labor increased success rates while reducing individual risk. Of course, alliances also meant sharing food. Human cooperation always arrives carrying mathematics behind it. By afternoon, a decision forms. A large party will travel east tomorrow, not to hunt, to claim what winter has already killed. Preparations consume the rest of the day. Flint blades are sharpened repeatedly until edges gleam pale beside firelight. Carrying frames made from wood and hide are repaired carefully. Extra torches wait near the entrance beside wrapped ember bundles. Children sense the tension immediately. No games today. The little red-cheeked girl sits quietly near the tracker while watching adults move around the cave. Finally, she asks, "Will the lions still be there?" The tracker does not lie. Yes, the girl absorbs this calmly. Ancient children probably encountered harsh realities earlier than modern societies prefer imagining. Predators, death-hungered weather, and injury remained visible parts of everyday existence. Survival left little room for illusions. Still, children remained children. Later, you notice the stranger child from the northern camp teaching younger ones how to shape tiny animal figures from softened bone scraps near the fire. A mammoth emerges slowly beneath careful fingers. Small, round, gentle-looking, nothing like the enormous dead creature waiting beyond the river. Outside, daylight fades beneath thick clouds once more. Wind carries sharp, icy grains through the valley, while smoke trails sideways across the cliffs. The world smells deeply frozen tonight. The old woman distributes a thin evening meal while reminding everyone to conserve strength. "Tomorrow uses many muscles," she mutters. Fair enough. After eating, several hunters sit near the entrance, exchanging stories about mammoths seen long ago. One describes a herd crossing frozen plains beneath red sunrise skies. Another remembers hearing mammoth calls echo through fog during childhood migrations. The sounds apparently resembled giant wooden horns. You try imagining it. The prehistoric world must have sounded extraordinary sometimes. Archaeologists uncovered entire structures built from mammoth bones in certain Ice Age regions, suggesting humans relied heavily on these massive animals, not only for food, but also shelter, fuel tools, and symbolism. One animal could shape many lives. The tracker eventually joins the storytelling quietly. "I saw a mammoth kill a cave lion once," she says. Everyone turns toward her immediately. The tracker pokes the fire thoughtfully before continuing. "The lion leaped too early." A hunter smirks faintly. "What happened?" The tracker looks into the flames. "The mammoth stepped on it." Simple story. Very educational. Later that night, sleep comes slowly again. Wind hums outside the cave, while bodies shift beneath layered hides. Smoke lingers thick near the ceiling, making your eyes sting whenever you wake briefly. At some point near midnight, you hear distant howls rising from the eastern forest. Many wolves, more than before. The sounds drift across the frozen valley in long, mournful waves that echo against stone cliffs before fading into darkness again. The mammoth is drawing them. Predators understand opportunity quickly. Humans do too. You lie awake staring toward the glowing embers, while the cave breathes softly around you. Somewhere eastward beyond the river, snow continues falling across enormous frozen tusks. Lions feed beneath drifting trees. Wolves circle through darkness patiently. And tomorrow your people will walk directly toward all of it, carrying sharpened stone and fragile firelight. Not because they are fearless, because winter leaves no gentler choices. Section 12. The journey east begins before sunrise. Nobody wants to cross the frozen river after daylight softens the ice. The valley still sleeps beneath darkness when hunters gather outside the cave carrying spears, hide ropes, torches, and sharpened stone blades wrapped carefully in fur. Breath clouds drift upward around everyone like pale smoke. The tracker kneels near the entrance, pressing glowing embers into bark containers lined with dry moss. One spark survives. Then another. Tiny orange lights pulse gently in the darkness. Portable warmth. Portable life. Children watch silently from inside the shelter, while adults prepare to live. The little girl with red cheeks grips her fur, covering tightly around narrow shoulders. "Bring back meat," she whispers. A simple request, a massive responsibility. The northern clan arrives shortly afterward, through drifting snow. Their hunters move quietly across the slope, carrying sled frames made from bent wood and hide strips. The broad-shouldered man with hollow cheeks nods once toward your group. No smiles. Not today. Today feels too serious for smiles. The combined hunting party numbers nearly 20, now the largest gathering you have ever traveled beside. So many boots crunching snow together create a strange, comforting rhythm across the frozen valley. More people means more safety, usually. Historians believe cooperation between Ice Age groups may have increased survival rates during difficult seasonal periods. Shared labor allowed larger hunts, safer travel, and stronger defense against predators. Yet larger groups also consumed resources more quickly. Human survival always balances between unity and scarcity. The eastern sky begins glowing faint gray by the time your group reaches the river. Ice fog drifts low across the surface while wind brushes powder snow into twisting shapes around your legs. The tracker stops suddenly. Everyone waits. She crouches beside the ice, studying fresh marks crossing the frozen surface. Wolf tracks, many, all moving east, toward the mammoth. The broad-shouldered northern hunter mutters something dark under his breath. Even without understanding the words fully, the meaning feels obvious. Wonderful. More competition. The crossing happens carefully and slowly. Each step sends tiny groans through the ice beneath your boots. The sound vibrates upward through your legs unpleasantly. Somewhere below, black water waits silently beneath frozen layers. You remember the old hunter again, only floating spear. Halfway across, one younger hunter slips briefly on smooth ice hidden beneath snow. Several people grab him instantly before momentum carries him farther. Nobody laughs. Fear travels too close beneath the surface now. Once across, the party moves quickly through dense forest toward the eastern ravine. Snow hangs heavy from pine branches overhead, while cold air smells sharply of sap and distant animal decay. The mammoth announces itself. Long before appearing. Birds circle overhead first. Then comes the scent. Rotting meat beneath freezing air. Predator musk. Blood. The smell thickens steadily as your group climbs the final ridge overlooking the ravine. Everyone stops together. Below, the mammoth still lies half buried beneath snow and broken branches. Its enormous shape dominates the frozen clearing like a collapsed hill of fur and ivory. But now the carcass moves slightly, not the mammoth itself. The creatures feeding on it. 3 cave lions crouch along the exposed ribs, tearing frozen meat loose with powerful jaws. Their thick winter coats ripple gold-brown beneath drifting snow. Steam rises from their mouths, while ravens hop nervously nearby, waiting for scraps. One lion lifts its head suddenly, watching. The ravine falls completely silent. Even the birds stop moving. Your pulse hammers painfully inside your chest. The lion's eyes look almost human in the pale winter light. Calm, intelligent, deeply uninterested in surrendering breakfast. Prehistoric humans shared Ice Age Europe with enormous predators, including cave lions, wolves, bears, and hyenas. Archaeological evidence suggests humans competed directly with carnivores for shelter territory and carcasses throughout harsh winters. Honestly, surviving this era seems increasingly unreasonable. The tracker studies the ravine carefully. Only 3, she murmurs. The broad-shouldered hunter shakes his head. 3 enough. Very true. The combined group spreads slowly along the ridge, preparing torches, while others gather loose branches and dried moss from protected bundles. Fire may frighten the lions away temporarily. May. No one sounds overly confident. The northern elder remains farther back beside the sled frames, whispering softly while touching carved bone charms hanging from her neck. Prayer, perhaps. Habit, maybe. Or simply nerves wearing ancient clothing. The tracker lights the first torch from glowing embers, protected inside bark. Flames flicker weakly at first before rising brighter beneath careful breaths. One by one, more torches ignite across the ridge, orange light against endless snow. The lions notice immediately. One rises slowly from the carcass. Massive shoulders roll beneath thick fur, while its breath drifts white through freezing air. Another emits a deep growl that vibrates across the ravine like distant thunder. Several hunters tighten grips on their spears instinctively. The tracker raises her torch higher. Then the shouting begins. Hunters roar together, while waving fire and spear shafts overhead. Burning branches hiss through cold air. Snow scatters beneath stomping boots as the group advances downhill toward the mammoth. For several terrifying moments, the lions refuse to move. The largest stands directly atop the carcass, staring toward the approaching humans with open irritation. Its tail lashes once through drifting snow. Then another torch lands nearby. Fire bursts across dry fur scraps beside the mammoth. The lions retreat abruptly after that, not panicked, angry. One snarls loudly before leaping toward the trees, while the others follow through deep snow. Their massive shapes vanish between dark trunks almost silently, despite their size. Gone. For now, no one celebrates yet. The tracker immediately orders watches placed around the ravine edges. Wolves and lions may return quickly once humans appear distracted. Several hunters remain guard, while everyone else descends toward the carcass at last. Up close, the mammoth looks even larger than before. Impossible almost. Its thick fur hangs stiff with frozen blood, while one tusk disappears completely beneath snow. Ice coats the enormous trunk curled against its chest. Ravens flutter away reluctantly as people surround the carcass with knives and scraping tools. Work begins instantly. Stone blades cut through thick hide slowly despite sharp edges. The smell rises powerfully once frozen flesh opens beneath warmer air. Blood darkens surrounding snow, while steam curls upward from deeper tissue untouched by cold. Hard work, relentless work. You help carve thick slabs of meat free beside the tracker, while others hack through layers of fat using stone axes. The broad-shouldered northern hunter breaks ribs apart for marrow access. Children are absent here. Good. Some sites belong to survival alone. Archaeologists discovered mammoth processing sites containing enormous quantities of butchered bones and stone tools, suggesting prehistoric humans organized highly efficient methods for harvesting large carcasses before spoilage or predators claimed them. Efficiency matters when lions may return at any moment. Hours pass quickly beneath pale daylight. Sled frames fill steadily with meat fat, hide strips and broken bones. The smell clings heavily to fur and skin now. Then a warning cry erupts from the ridge. Everyone freezes instantly. A hunter points toward the trees east of the ravine. Shapes move there again. Not lions this time. Humans. At least 8 figures emerge slowly between snow-covered pines, carrying spears and torches of their own. Their fur clothing appears darker than either clan's. Bone necklaces swing against heavy winter hides. Strangers. More hungry people. And every eye immediately settles upon the mammoth. Section 13. Nobody moves at first. Snow drifts quietly through the ravine, while 3 separate groups stare across the mammoth carcass in complete silence. Your own people grip bloody stone blades and spears beside towering ribs of frozen flesh. The strangers remain half hidden among dark trees, uphill their torches flickering orange against pale snow. The mammoth suddenly feels smaller, not in size, in ownership. The tracker rises slowly from beside the carcass. Blood stains her fur gloves dark red, while steam curls around her in the freezing air. Across the ravine, one of the strangers steps forward carrying a long spear tipped with black stone. Different flint, different people. He studies the mammoth first, then the meat sleds, then all of you. The broad-shouldered northern hunter mutters quietly. Too many eyes now. Very true. Historians believe prehistoric scavenging sites likely created dangerous encounters between unrelated human groups, especially during harsh winters. Large carcasses provided enormous survival value, making territorial conflict increasingly possible, and apparently awkward staring contests too. The stranger leader speaks first. His language sounds rougher than yours, full of sharp, clipped sounds. Most words remain impossible to understand, but his meaning becomes clear when he gestures toward the mammoth with an open hand. Claim, or request, hard to tell which. The northern elder climbs slowly down beside the tracker. She carries no visible weapon now, only a torch held low beside her leg. Snow gathers across her gray braids, while smoke curls around her lined face. She answers carefully using simple shared words and gestures. Food, many people. Winter. The stranger leader watches without expression. Behind him, several younger hunters shift nervously between the trees. One appears painfully thin beneath patched hides. Another coughs repeatedly into his arm. Hungry people again. Always hunger. A raven lands briefly atop one exposed mammoth rib before flapping away at the sudden tension below. The sound startles everyone slightly. No one laughs. The tracker suddenly kneels beside the carcass and cuts free a heavy strip of meat with one clean motion. She lifts it carefully, then places it onto the snow halfway between both groups. An offering. The ravine falls silent again. Historians still debate how prehistoric humans avoided constant violence during resource competition. Gift exchange, symbolic gestures. Ritual sharing and carefully managed encounters may have reduced conflict between groups under extreme environmental pressure. Or perhaps everyone simply understood fighting beside a mammoth attracted lions. The stranger leader stares at the meat lying between both sides for a long moment. Then he lowers his spear, not fully. Enough. One younger stranger moves forward cautiously and retrieves the offered meat before backing away again. No sudden movement follows. No attack. Just watching. The tracker exhales slowly through her nose. A beginning. Soon gestures replace threats gradually. Your clan points toward the remaining untouched sections of the mammoth. The strangers indicate how many people wait with them farther east. Not many. Maybe 12. Too few for comfort during winter. The broad-shouldered northern hunter clearly dislikes everything about this arrangement. You notice his grip tightening repeatedly around his spear shaft whenever strangers move suddenly. Reasonable instinct. But reasonable instincts sometimes start wars. The stranger leader eventually kneels beside the mammoth opposite your group. Without speaking further, he begins cutting meat free alongside everyone else. Work resumes. Carefully. Tense at first. Then steadily. Soon, the ravine fills again with scraping stone blades, cracking ribs, grunting effort, and drifting steam rising from butchered flesh. Snow becomes packed dark beneath dozens of boots, while sleds slowly fill with precious meat and fat. 3 clans now share the same carcass, an extraordinary sight in the frozen world. You work beside one stranger hunter younger than yourself. A pale scar crosses his chin beneath frost-covered beard hair. Though neither of you shares language well, cooperation comes surprisingly easily once lifting heavy mammoth hide becomes necessary. Pull, cut, lift. Simple tasks speak clearly enough. At one point, he points toward your flint blade appreciatively. You point toward his warmer boots. Fair exchange. Nearby children from the stranger clan finally appear cautiously along the ravine edge, carrying smaller baskets woven from reeds and bark. One little boy stares at the mammoth with enormous, frightened eyes. Perhaps he imagined monsters differently. Archaeologists uncovered evidence suggesting prehistoric children participated actively in daily survival work much earlier than modern societies often expect. Young people gathered fuel, prepared hides, carried supplies, and learned hunting skills gradually through observation. Winter educated everyone quickly. By late afternoon, the ravine smells overwhelmingly of blood smoke, wet fur, and opened marrow. Ravens gather boldly nearby now, hopping closer whenever humans move aside briefly. Wolves howl somewhere deeper in the forest. Waiting. The tracker hears them first. Faster, she warns quietly. Everyone works harder afterward. Fat proves especially valuable. Several women scrape thick, pale layers into hide containers carefully, because rendered mammoth fat can provide calories, fuel, and warmth for many days ahead. Nothing gets wasted. Not skin, not sinew, not bone. Even the mammoth's stomach lining becomes useful once cleaned properly. Prehistoric communities transformed nearly every animal part into tools, clothing containers, glue, medicine, or fuel. Survival rewarded creativity relentlessly. Modern people complain when batteries die. Meanwhile, Ice Age humans looked at giant intestines and thought excellent storage material. Human adaptability remains deeply unsettling. As daylight begins fading, tension suddenly returns. One of the stranger children screams. Everyone jerks upward immediately. A wolf stands near the ravine edge, huge, gray-white beneath drifting sarso. It stares directly toward the mammoth, while several smaller shapes move silently through trees behind it. The pack returned. The broad-shouldered northern hunter raises his spear instantly, but the tracker grabs his arm sharply before he throws. Too far, too risky. The wolf remains motionless despite the shouting humans below. Its pale eyes drift slowly across the crowded ravine, calculating distance, weakness, opportunity. You realize something unsettling then. The wolves have been watching all day, learning. Some researchers believe wolves drawn repeatedly toward human hunting sites may have gradually developed familiarity with human behavior over generations. Less aggressive wolves benefited from scavenging opportunities near camps. This wolf, however, currently looks interested in direct negotiations involving teeth. Torches rise quickly around the ravine, while hunters shout and strike spear shafts against stone. Firelight flickers wildly through gathering darkness. The wolf finally retreats one slow step, then another. The pack disappears silently afterward among black trees. No one relaxes completely. Night approaches too quickly now. Snow falls harder through dimming air, while loaded sleds wait near the ravine edge. The mammoth still contains more meat than your groups can carry today, a painful reality. The tracker studies the remaining carcass thoughtfully before speaking. We return tomorrow. The stranger leader nods immediately. No disagreement. Too much remains behind. Soon the other three clans prepare separate sleds and bundles for departure. Torches flare brighter against deepening twilight, while the ravine darkens around stripped mammoth bones and drifting ravens. Before leaving, the stranger leader approaches the tracker once more. He touches one hand against his chest, then points toward the eastern forest. A name, perhaps, or a promise. The tracker repeats the gesture quietly. For a brief moment beneath falling snow and dying daylight, the frozen world feels strangely connected. 3 clans, 1 mammoth. Shared fear, shared hunger, shared survival. Then darkness thickens across the ravine, and everyone begins dragging precious meat home through the endless winter night. Section 14. The journey home feels slower beneath the weight of mammoth meat. Sled runners scrape across frozen ground, while bundled hides creak under enormous loads of fat bone and flesh. Snow falls steadily through the dark forest, softening torchlight into blurred orange halos between the trees. Nobody speaks much. Too tired, too alert. The wolves remain somewhere nearby. You feel them even when you hear nothing. The combined group separated after leaving the ravine, each clan following different paths through the forest to avoid crowding narrow trails. The stranger clan vanished eastward first, carrying their own share beneath flickering torches. The northern hunters moved north across a frozen creek soon afterward. Now only your people remain together, moving west toward the valley. The tracker walks near the front beside the clan leader, while 2 hunters guard the rear, dragging heavily loaded sleds. Every few moments, someone glances back into the darkness automatically. Winter trains caution into the body. The smell surrounding the group feels overwhelming now. Blood, fur, raw fat, smoke from torches. The mammoth clings to everyone like another skin. Predators will smell it for miles. Historians believe prehistoric hunters, transporting large quantities of fresh meat, faced enormous dangers from scavengers and carnivores during winter migrations. Protecting food after a successful hunt may have proven nearly as dangerous as obtaining it. Victory often creates new problems. Human history seems remarkably committed to that tradition. You cross the frozen river shortly after nightfall. Ice groans beneath the sled weight, while torches hiss softly in falling snow. Dark water shifts somewhere below the frozen surface. One hunter whispers quickly. Nobody needs convincing. The far bank finally rises beneath your boots again, and relief moves quietly through the group. Home remains close now. The cave fire likely burns bright against the cliffside already. Warmth waits ahead. Then comes the sound. Not wolves, human voices, shouting. Everyone freezes instantly. The cries drift faintly across the valley from somewhere near your shelter. Fear grips your stomach immediately, while hunters lower sled handles and seize weapons. Another shout echoes through the snow. Closer now. The tracker runs first. The rest of you follow hard behind through deep drifts while torches scatter sparks wildly into darkness. Breath tears through your chest painfully. Sleds are abandoned temporarily near the riverbank. Nothing matters except reaching the cave. As the slope rises beneath your feet, smoke appears through the snowfall ahead. Too much smoke. Your pulse quickens harder. Then the cave entrance comes into view. Several figures move outside the shelter carrying torches and spears. Children cluster near the rear wall, while adults shout over the wind. Not an attack. Something else. You reach the camp breathless. The old woman rushes forward immediately. Rock slide, she says. You stare upward. Part of the cliff above the cave entrance collapsed during your absence. Several enormous stones now block part of the shelter opening, while broken debris litters the slope below. Snow still trickles from damaged rock overhead occasionally. One hunter lies near the fire, clutching his shoulder beneath bloodied hides, alive. Fortunately, barely. The tracker studies the damaged cliff silently, while snow drifts around her boots. A jagged crack now splits part of the stone wall above the cave entrance, where ice likely weakened the rock. Unstable. Dangerous. The clan leader exhales slowly. We cannot stay here long. The words land heavily. This cave protected generations through winter storms and predator seasons. Children learned stories beside this fire. Hunters stored tools within these walls. The old hunter was buried overlooking this valley only yesterday, and now the mountain itself pushes everyone away. Historians still debate how often prehistoric groups lost shelters to natural disasters, including floods, cave collapses, avalanches, and shifting ice. Temporary safety remained exactly that. Temporary. Inside the cave, tension spreads quickly, while meat bundles from the mammoth are finally dragged inside, away from snow and scavengers. The smell becomes almost unbearable once fresh meat joins the smoky enclosed shelter. Still, no one complains. Food remains life, even beside danger. The injured hunter winces while the old woman unwraps his shoulder carefully. A deep bruise spreads across his upper chest where falling stones struck him during the collapse. Bone may be cracked. He survived through luck alone. The little red-cheeked girl sits nearby, watching silently, while holding a carved mammoth figure given by the stranger child earlier. You suddenly wonder whether children remember disasters more clearly than adults. Perhaps adults learn how to bury fear beneath practical work. Children simply feel it honestly. Outside, wind grows stronger again near midnight. Snow slides intermittently from the damaged cliff, with soft rushing sounds that keep waking everyone. Nobody fully trusts the shelter anymore, nor should they. The tracker eventually rises from beside the fire and walks toward the cave entrance alone. You follow quietly. The valley beyond glows pale beneath snowfall. Abandoned sleds remain near the river, somewhere below buried gradually by drifting snow. The world appears calm, despite everything. The tracker studies the cracked cliff above. It will fall again, she says softly. You know she is right. Soon, she shrugs slightly. Mountains answer only themselves. Fair enough. Ancient humans likely developed deep respect for unpredictable natural forces, because survival depended on reading landscapes correctly. Certain caves, rivers, or cliffs may have acquired spiritual significance, partly because they repeatedly shaped human life and death. Fear creates memory quickly. A distant howl rises through the valley then. Wolf. Another answers farther east. The mammoth carcass still feeds the frozen world tonight. Inside the cave, several adults begin discussing possible movement routes quietly around the fire. The elk herds traveled east. The stranger clan lives beyond the forest. The northern people remain near the ridge. Migration approaches whether anyone feels ready or not. One older woman mutters, "The valley is dying." Nobody argues. Perhaps valleys die the same way people do. Slowly first, then suddenly. Near dawn, exhaustion finally drags most people into uneasy sleep, despite the danger overhead. The fire burns lower now, casting dim orange light across crowded bodies and stacked mammoth meat. You remain awake longer listening to the cave. Every creak of stone sounds threatening now. Every drifting pebble near the entrance tightens your chest. The shelter no longer feels solid beneath the mountain. Outside, snow continues falling across the prehistoric valley, while wolves roam beneath the cliffs, and distant strangers sleep beside their own fires. And somewhere deep beneath ancient ice and stone, the earth shifts patiently toward another change your people cannot yet see coming. Section 15. You wake to silence, not peaceful silence, the dangerous kind. No wind presses against the cave entrance. No snow slips from the cliffs above. Even the fire burns quietly, reduced to low glowing embers beneath gray ash. Around you, sleeping bodies remain still beneath layered hides, while pale dawn light barely reaches the rear walls. The mountain is listening again. You sit upright slowly. The tracker already stands near the entrance, staring outside. Of course she does. Some people simply belong to mornings before everyone else. The cave smells heavy now. Mammoth fat hangs drying above the fire, while fresh hides stretch across stone walls, stiffening in the cold. Smoke clings to everything. Your hair, your skin, your breath. Winter leaves its fingerprints everywhere. The tracker gestures for you to follow her outside. The air feels sharper than before once you step into the valley. Snow no longer falls. The sky above the cliffs glows pale blue for the first time in many days, though sunlight remains weak and distant. Cold without clouds feels crueler somehow. The damaged cliff above the cave looks worse in daylight. Long fractures spread through dark stone where ice expanded overnight. Loose rocks scatter across the slope beneath the crack. One heavy collapse could bury the entrance entirely. The tracker studies the cliff silently before crouching beside the snow near the cave mouth. Tracks, fresh ones. You kneel beside her. Wolf again. Several passed near camp during darkness. One came close enough that you can see claw marks where it slipped briefly on ice hidden beneath the snow crust. The pack grows bolder. Historians believe wolves learned human patterns remarkably well during long Ice Age winters. Camps meant food scraps, weakened prey warmth, and opportunity. Humans likely learned wolf behavior equally carefully in return. Two intelligent predators, studying each other across generations, a slightly unsettling friendship. The tracker follows the tracks downhill a short distance before stopping abruptly. Her eyes narrow toward the eastern valley. You hear it moments later, a deep distant rumbling. Not thunder, too heavy. The sound vibrates faintly through frozen ground beneath your boots. Several birds burst upward from trees farther east, while snow drifts loose from rocky slopes. Avalanche, far away, still large. The rumbling continues several long moments before fading gradually into silence again. Back inside the cave, everyone has awakened now. The old woman stirs melted fat into heated broth, while hunters inspect travel gear beside the fire. Children whisper quietly after hearing the avalanche. Fear spreads quickly among young people, though honestly, adults mostly hide it better. The clan leader rises once the tracker returns. "We move soon," he says simply. No argument follows this time. The cave no longer feels trustworthy enough for debate. Preparation begins immediately. Mammoth meat is wrapped tightly inside layered hides. Bone tools disappear into travel bundles, alongside carved ornaments, sewing needles, dried roots, and ember containers. Every possession must justify its weight now. Migration strips life down brutally. Keep what matters, carry what survives. Leave the rest. Archaeologists studying prehistoric migration patterns believe Ice Age groups traveled surprisingly light despite harsh conditions. Essential tools, clothing materials, fire-making supplies, and preserved food likely mattered more than accumulating possessions. You notice how carefully people choose objects now. One woman leaves behind a cracked stone bowl too heavy to carry. A hunter abandons broken spear shafts near the rear wall. Children argue quietly over which carved toys deserve space inside travel bundles. Small decisions, heavy emotions. The little red-cheeked girl eventually chooses the mammoth carving from the stranger child, not the older bone bead from home. Interesting. Outside, pale sunlight spreads weakly across the frozen valley, while hunters scout routes toward the east. The elk herd traveled there. The mammoth lies there. The stranger clan camps there, somewhere beyond the forest. Movement eastward feels inevitable now. The northern elder arrives again before midday, with news carried through hurried breath and frost-covered fur. The river changes, she warns. The tracker stiffens immediately, ice shifting. Dangerous timing. Warmer air from the south may already weaken frozen crossings, despite deep winter still gripping the valley. Rivers become unpredictable during temperature swings beneath heavy snow. The old hunter's story returns to everyone at once. Only floating spears. A scouting group leaves immediately to inspect safer routes downstream. You join them carrying bundled torches and a long walking spear for testing ice depth. The valley feels strangely exposed beneath clear skies after so many storm-filled days. Sunlight reflects painfully bright across untouched snowfields, while distant forests stand dark and motionless against white hills. Beautiful enough to forget danger briefly. Almost. The frozen river appears unchanged initially. Wide, silent, solid beneath drifting snow. Then you hear it. Water flowing beneath the ice. The sound comes faintly at first, hidden below the frozen surface. But once noticed, it becomes impossible to ignore. Dark cracks snake beneath snow near the center crossing where your people traveled days earlier. The tracker tests one section carefully. The ice bends slightly. Too much. No crossing there anymore. One hunter mutters a curse softly beneath his breath. Historians still debate how prehistoric humans predicted safe winter crossings without modern tools. Experience, seasonal memory on snow texture and water movement likely guided decisions constantly, and sometimes those decisions still failed. The scouting party moves farther downstream, where narrow stone walls squeeze the river tightly between cliffs. Ice forms thicker there due to faster freezing currents. Hopefully, the tracker kneels again, listens, then nods once. Better. Not safe. Better. That will have to satisfy everyone. On the return journey, you notice something strange near the tree line east of camp. Thin wooden poles stand half buried beneath snow, with strips of hide fluttering weakly from their tops. Markers, human-made. The stranger clan, perhaps, or older travelers long gone. The tracker studies them thoughtfully. Warnings, she says. You approach one carefully. Small bones hang from the hide strips tied with braided grass cord. Bird skulls, perhaps. Fox teeth. Tiny carved shapes. Protective symbols, maybe, or boundary signs. Scholars still argue about the spiritual meanings behind prehistoric markers, carvings and ritual objects found across ancient migration routes. Some may have guided travel. Others possibly warned strangers away from dangerous places or sacred ground. Either way, someone wanted these poles noticed. The wind shifts suddenly while you stand there. A strange smell reaches you. Smoke, not your campfire, more than one fire. The tracker smells it too immediately. She turns eastward. Beyond distant trees, faint gray smoke curls upward against pale winter skies. The stranger clan, closer now than before. Perhaps they move too. By sunset, your cave has transformed completely. Travel bundles line the walls where sleeping spaces once rested comfortably. Meat hangs packed for transport. Children sleep wearing their boots and fur layers, in case departure comes before dawn. Nobody feels settled anymore, not even the fire. The old woman feeds the embers carefully while staring at the cracked ceiling above. Shadows flicker across fractured stone like moving water. The cave already feels abandoned somehow. Outside the valley glows blue beneath moonlight. And snow. Wolves move somewhere beyond the cliffs. Rivers shift beneath ice. Strangers prepare their own journeys through the frozen wilderness. And your people wait beside weakening stone, knowing the ancient world is pushing everyone east, whether they wish to go or not. Section 16. Departure comes before sunrise. No one says the cave is lost. No one needs to. People simply rise in the dark, gather bundles, lift sleeping children, and move as though the decision has always lived inside them. The fire burns low behind the old woman, while she prepares the ember bundle with steady hands. Her face shows nothing, but she moves slowly today. The shelter that held your clan through storms, hunger births, fevers, and burials now glows behind you in fading firelight. Mammoth meat hangs wrapped beside travel frames. Spears lean near the entrance. Hides scrape softly against stone as people shoulder their loads. The cave smells of smoke, fat, cold stone, and leaving. That last smell is strange. Perhaps memory has a scent. Outside the valley waits beneath moonlight. Snow reflects the sky in a dull blue glow, and every breath rises white before disappearing. The cracked cliff above the entrance looms dark and silent overhead. Too silent. The tracker watches it while everyone files out. The little red-cheeked girl turns back once, clutching the small mammoth carving against her chest. Her mother gently guides her forward without speaking. Children learn goodbye by watching adults survive it. The clan leader gives one final look into the cave. Then he nods. You begin walking east. The first part of the journey feels familiar, because you know this valley's slopes, stones, frozen shrubs, and hidden dips beneath snow. Yet today, everything feels altered. Each landmark becomes a memory as soon as you pass it. The old burial ridge appears briefly above you. The old hunter sleeps there beneath stone and ochre. Nobody stops, but several heads turn. A quiet farewell. Historians believe prehistoric people may have revisited burial places when migration routes allowed. Though evidence varies greatly across regions, some sites suggest repeated use over long periods. Others seem brief, personal, and easily lost to weather. Perhaps some graves became landmarks. Perhaps others simply vanished. Winter snow has already softened his mound. Soon the valley may forget. Your group reaches the frozen river, while dawn begins staining the eastern horizon pale gray. The safer crossing downstream waits between narrow stone walls, exactly where the tracker judged the ice thicker yesterday. Still, nobody trusts it fully. The river murmurs beneath. You hear water moving under the ice, dark and patient, hidden below white crust. The sound makes every person quieter. Even children stop whispering. One by one, hunters cross first with spears testing each step. The ice answers with faint groans but does not break. Next come the children elders and heavily loaded sled frames. Your turn arrives. You step onto the ice carefully. Cold rises through your boots immediately, as if the river recognizes your weight. The hide frame beside you scrapes softly, loaded with mammoth fat and dried meat. Beneath you, trapped water whispers along invisible paths. Halfway across, a crack snaps sharply behind you. Everyone freezes. The sound travels fast beneath the ice, branching outward in thin, pale lines near one sled runner. A child whimpers once before being hushed gently. The tracker signals with 2 fingers. Move, slowly, not panic. Panic breaks things. You shift your weight forward and continue. Every step feels longer than the last. The far bank waits only a few body lengths away, yet distance stretches cruelly over dangerous ice. Then your boots touch snow-covered stones, solid ground. Your breath leaves in one trembling cloud. Others follow carefully until the entire clan reaches the far side. No one celebrates loudly. Relief can be quiet when fear still listens nearby. Behind you, the valley lies across the river now, separated by ice. by choice, by necessity. The route east leads through denser forest, where morning light struggles between branches heavy with frost. The atmosphere changes quickly. Pine scent thickens. Snow muffles footsteps. Hidden birds flutter occasionally from low brush, startling everyone more than they should. Your shoulders ache beneath the carrying frame. The meat weight pulls steadily against your back. Mammoth saves lives, yes. Mammoth is also extremely inconvenient. A younger hunter slips in deep snow and mutters something bitter while rising. The old woman actually laughs once quietly under her breath. A tiny sound, warm as a coal. By midday, the clan stops beneath a cluster of leaning pines to rest. Children drink melted snow, warmed in skin containers, while adults chew strips of cold meat, stiff as bark. The old woman checks the ember bundle immediately. Still alive. Tiny smoke curls from within dry moss. The fire continues traveling with you. Mainstream archaeology supports the idea that control of fire gave prehistoric humans enormous winter advantages, including warmth cooking, predator, deterrence, and social gathering spaces. Carrying embers between camps may have preserved effort and reduced risk, because making fire from nothing in freezing wind is politely a terrible hobby. After the brief rest, the tracker finds signs of the elk herd again. Fresh tracks, many. They cut across a slope toward lower ground, where wind has cleared snow from patches of buried grass. Several animals passed recently, perhaps within the day. Hope moves through the clan, carefully. No one wants to frighten it. But soon another sign appears, a broken hide marker tied to a tree, then another. These belong to the eastern strangers, or perhaps to older routes known by many groups. Tiny bones hang from the cords, clicking softly whenever wind passes through branches. The little girl stares at them uneasily. Do they keep wolves away? Her mother answers gently. Maybe they keep fear busy. That is not very scientific, but it feels useful. Scholars still debate the purpose of prehistoric symbolic markers found near roots camps and ritual spaces. Some may have served practical navigation. Others may have expressed group identity, warning memory or spiritual protection. In winter, those meanings probably overlapped. A sign could guide feet and steady hearts. Late afternoon brings the sound of rushing snow from far ahead. The tracker stops instantly. Everyone listens. At first, you hear only wind through trees. Then comes a low rumbling vibration moving somewhere beyond the next ridge. Not close enough to strike immediately, but near enough to warn. Avalanche country. The clan leader orders everyone downslope toward thicker trees where trunks may break sliding snow. Movement becomes slower now, more cautious. Every sound above draws tense glances upward. Then a boy near the rear suddenly points. Look! High on the ridge, snow begins sliding. A white sheet loosens beneath exposed rock, moving slowly at first, then faster. It gathers more snow. As it descends, swelling into a cloud that roars through the slope beyond your path. Everyone crouches instinctively. The avalanche pours across the upper valley ahead, destroying small trees and filling the air with powdery mist. The sound is enormous, like the mountain exhaling anger. Then it stops. Silence returns slowly. Snow dust drifts between branches, catching pale evening light. Your planned route has vanished beneath a fresh wall of snow. The tracker stares at it for a long moment. Then she looks south. A longer way, a colder way, but open. No one complains. Complaining does not move mountains. As twilight deepens, the clan searches for temporary shelter among rocks below the avalanche slope. No cave appears, only a shallow overhang protected partly by trees and fallen branches. It will have to be enough. People work quickly before darkness hardens. Hides stretch between poles. Snow walls rise low against the wind. Children gather branches while hunters clear ground near the center. The old woman. The ember bundle. For one dreadful heartbeat, nothing glows. Then she blows softly. A tiny red light wakes inside the moss. Soon smoke rises. Then everyone watches the fire grow, as though seeing a miracle return from death. Night settles around the makeshift camp. The air smells of pine smoke, wet hide, mammoth fat, and snow. Wolves howl distantly beyond the buried root, but the sound seems farther tonight. You sit beside the new fire, and exhausted beyond thought. Behind you lies the old cave. Ahead waits uncertain country elk tracks, strangers' avalanches and thawing rivers. But here, under dark trees and ancient winter stars, your people still breathe together. The fire has crossed. So have you. Section 17. The forest camp survives the night. Barely. You wake several times beneath layered hides, listening to branches groan under fresh snow. Wind moves unevenly through the trees above, sometimes whispering softly, sometimes roaring hard enough to shake loose frozen powder across the shelter walls. Nothing here feels permanent. Not the fire, not the snow walls, not even the ground beneath you. Still dawn comes. A pale silver light filters through pine branches, while smoke curls upward from the campfire the old woman protected all night. Her eyes look hollow from exhaustion, but the embers survived again. That alone feels impressive. Children emerge slowly from beneath fur coverings, rubbing cold hands together, while adults stamp frost from stiff boots. Mammoth fat melts inside heated stone bowls, beside the flames, filling the air with a thick, greasy smell. Breakfast tastes heavy, necessary. The avalanche buried the northern route completely. Everyone understands this now, after several hunters scout the slope at sunrise. Snow piles taller than mammoths block the old path beneath shattered trees and broken ice. The mountain decided. You travel south instead. The tracker leads the migration through narrower forest valleys, where cliffs offer partial shelter from the wind. Snow lies deeper here, untouched by strong currents, and every step sinks painfully beneath your weight. Progress becomes slow, painfully slow. Sled runners snag hidden roots beneath the snow crust. Children grow tired quickly. One older man slips twice crossing buried stones and must be lifted upright both times. Nobody complains openly, but weariness settles heavily across the group. Historians believe winter migration demanded enormous physical endurance from prehistoric humans. Deep snow, cold exposure, limited food injuries, and constant movement likely exhausted entire communities for weeks at a time. Honestly, your legs stopped belonging to you several miles ago. By midday, clouds gather again above the cliffs. Bad sign. The tracker notices immediately. Storm before night, she says. The clan leader studies the sky grimly. Everyone moves faster afterward, despite exhaustion. You descend gradually toward lower terrain, where patches of dead grass occasionally appear through thinner snow. Elk tracks crisscross the area more heavily now, carving winding paths between frozen shrubs and narrow tree openings. Fresh droppings steam faintly beside one trail. The herd remains close. Hope returns quietly, then disappears just as quickly. A child begins coughing near the rear of the group. At first, nobody reacts strongly. Cold air dries throats constantly during travel. But the coughing continues. Sharper now. Deeper. The stranger child from the northern clan. Their mother kneels immediately beside them, while the old woman pushes through the group, carrying heated stones wrapped in fur. The child's cheeks burn red despite the freezing air. Fever. An unpleasant silence spreads afterward. Sickness during winter frightens people differently than predators do. Predators can be fought. Storms can sometimes be avoided. Fever lives inside the body itself. Harder enemy. Archaeologists studying prehistoric populations found evidence of survival after injuries and illnesses severe enough to require prolonged community care. Ancient humans likely supported vulnerable group members far more compassionately than once assumed. Kindness apparently is very old. The migration slows again, while the child rides atop a hide sled wrapped in mammoth fur beside heated stones. Their mother whispers softly throughout the journey, brushing snow from damp hair repeatedly. The little red-cheeked girl walks beside the sled, quietly carrying the carved mammoth figure. Children understand comfort instinctively. By late afternoon, wind rises sharply from the west, carrying fresh snow through the forest. The storm arrives faster than expected. Fine white powder races between trees while visibility shrinks steadily. The tracker searches urgently now. Shelter, any shelter. You climb through narrow stone ridges where snow gathers unevenly against dark rock walls. The world grows dimmer by the minute beneath thickening clouds. Then one hunter shouts. Ahead, partly hidden beneath hanging ice and tangled branches, a cave opening appears. Small, but real. Relief nearly buckles your knees. The shelter sits low against the hillside, hidden well beneath overgrown stone and snowdrifts. Inside the cave stretches deeper than expected, though far narrower than your old valley shelter. Still dry, still protected. Good enough. People move quickly once inside. Fires must be started before the storm fully arrives. Wet hides must be hung. Children must be warmed immediately. The old woman kneels beside dry moss and ember bark, while everyone watches anxiously. For one terrible moment, the moss refuses to catch. Then smoke rises. Then flame. The entire cave exhales together. Outside, the storm crashes into the hillside minutes later. Wind screams through nearby trees, while snow sweeps across the entrance in thick spirals. Darkness arrives early beneath storm clouds. Inside the cave glows orange and gold. Safe, for now. As people settle, you begin noticing strange markings on the cave walls near the rear chambers. Dark lines, handprints, animal shapes barely visible beneath soot and age. Old paintings, very old. The tracker approaches them silently. Several mammoths appear painted across the stone in faded black and reddish-brown pigment. Nearby stand long-horned bison deer and strange human-like figures with raised arms. One image catches your attention most, a line of handprints, large and small together. Historians still debate the meaning behind prehistoric cave art. Some scholars believe the paintings reflected spiritual rituals, hunting magic storytelling, memory or teaching. Others argue many caves held layered meanings, changing across generations. Whatever these people intended, they wanted to be remembered. The feverish child sleeps near the fire, while adults study the paintings quietly. Even exhausted hunters move carefully here, speaking softer than before. The cave feels occupied somehow. Not haunted exactly, observed. The northern elder touches one painted mammoth gently with 2 fingers. Then she points toward your people gathered around the flames. Same story, different winter. Outside, storm winds hammer the hillside relentlessly, while snow piles higher around the hidden entrance. Wolves howl somewhere far below their cries, nearly lost beneath the weather. Inside the painted cave, the clan shares hot broth, thickened with mammoth fat and melted snow. Shadows dance across ancient animals, frozen on the stone walls. You realize something quietly unsettling then. Thousands of years earlier, another family may have sat exactly here, listening to winter storms, while wondering whether they would survive until spring. The thought should feel lonely. Instead, strangely, it feels comforting. Night deepens gradually around the fire. The sick child breathes easier after warm broth and heated stones. Children drift asleep beneath painted mammoths, while adults continue staring at ancient handprints, fading into darkness beyond the flames. Human hands, still reaching across time. Outside, winter continues endlessly across the frozen world. But inside this hidden cave, surrounded by old firelight and older memories, your people endure one more night together. Section 18. The storm traps everyone inside the painted cave for 2 full days. Snow buries the entrance gradually, until only a narrow opening remains for air and smoke. Wind howls across the hillside without rest, sometimes low and mournful, sometimes sharp enough to sound almost human. The hidden shelter creaks softly beneath shifting snow, while firelight flickers across ancient paintings on the walls. Time slows strangely here. People sleep more, talk less, listen constantly. The feverish child survives the first night, though barely. Their breathing remains shallow and uneven beneath heavy mammoth fur. while the old woman presses warmed stones against small, trembling hands. The child's mother never leaves their side, not even once. You sit near the rear wall, sharpening a bone needle, beside painted mammoths, darkened by age and smoke. The figures seem to move whenever firelight shifts across them. One animal appears wounded. Another looks almost alive beneath the dancing shadows. The tracker notices you watching. They painted movement, she says quietly. You glance toward her. How? She gestures toward overlapping legs painted beneath one mammoth. Several positions, several moments together. Historians studying prehistoric cave art discovered many animals painted with layered limbs or repeated outlines, possibly suggesting motion when viewed by flickering firelight. Some researchers compare the effect to an early form of animation. Ancient humans apparently invented moving pictures before farming. Rather impressive priorities. Children spend long hours tracing shapes near the walls with careful fingers, while adults repair damaged clothing and travel gear beside the flames. Smoke clings heavily to the cave ceiling, now carrying the smell of pine resin wet hide and melted fat. Comforting smells, mostly. One younger hunter accidentally burns mammoth grease while cooking, and the entire cave briefly smells like angry hair and sadness. Nobody lets him forget it. Laughter spreads surprisingly easily after that. Short, tired, necessary. The storm outside grows worse during the second night. Snow hammers against stone, while powerful gusts force icy powder through tiny cracks near the entrance. Several times the entire shelter vibrates faintly beneath the weight building overhead. Avalanche weather again. Everyone knows it. The tracker sleeps lightly near the entrance with her spear beside her arm. Even resting, she listens. Some people are built from caution. Near midnight, a strange sound drifts through the storm. Not wind, not wolves. Music. Soft at first, almost lost beneath the weather. The northern elder hears it too immediately. She rises slowly from beside the fire, while others wake around her in confusion. The sound comes again. Bone flute, faint, outside the cave. Every hunter reaches for weapons italitat. The tracker signals silence. The music continues briefly. Slow, wavering notes, drifting through snow and darkness. Then it stops completely. No footsteps follow. No voices. Nothing. Only storm. The atmosphere inside the cave changes uneasily afterward. Several children pull closer toward the fire, while hunters stare toward the blocked entrance. Who plays music in weather like this one, whispers. No answer comes. Historians still argue how prehistoric groups used music outside rituals or storytelling. Some scholars believe sound may have served practical functions during travel hunting coordination or communication between camps across difficult landscapes. Or perhaps someone beyond the storm simply feared silence too much. The tracker eventually steps toward the entrance carrying a torch, despite the weather outside. You follow before thinking better of it. Cold air strikes immediately once snow is cleared aside enough to squeeze through. The storm nearly blinds you at first. Snow races sideways across the hillside beneath darkness thick as fur. Then the tracker points. Tracks, fresh, human footprints partially filling with snow near the entrance. Only one person. The tracks arrive from the east, then leave again. Beside them rests something half buried beneath fresh snow. A flute. Carved bone polished smooth from long use. You lift it carefully, still warm. The tracker studies the disappearing footprints silently. No pursuit follows. Perhaps whoever came only wished to be heard. Back inside, the northern elder recognizes the flute immediately. Her expression tightens with something between sadness and respect. One of the eastern people, she says softly. The strangers from the mammoth. She nods. Old custom. The elder explains through gestures and broken words that some distant clans leave music during dangerous storms to announce peaceful passage nearby. Sound travels where faces cannot. A greeting carried through darkness. The idea feels strangely beautiful and deeply unsettling. Outside the storm unseen, humans move through the same frozen wilderness, listening for one another beneath the wind. The flute passes quietly through many hands afterward. Children touch the carved holes curiously, while adults inspect tiny animal markings etched near the mouthpiece. Foxes, birds, running deer. The old woman finally hands it back toward the northern elder. Keep it near the fire, she says. Cold cracks bone. Practical wisdom survives every era. By the third morning, the storm finally weakens. Pale sunlight filters dimly through the entrance, while everyone works clearing packed snow away from the cave mouth. The outside world emerges slowly, changed again. Snow now reaches halfway up nearby trees. Branches lie shattered across buried slopes, while old tracks vanish completely beneath fresh drifts. The feverish child wakes stronger at last during the clearing work. Their mother nearly cries from relief. Nearly. Children immediately begin arguing again afterward over bone figures near the fire, which feels like another kind of healing. The tracker studies the sky once everyone gathers outside. Clear weather, for now. Migration must continue before another storm traps the clan completely. Food remains limited despite the mammoth meat. The elk herd still moves somewhere south and east beyond unfamiliar valleys. Movement means survival. The cave paintings watch silently, while people prepare to leave once more. Bundles tighten. Embers are wrapped carefully. Children pull on stiff fur boots beside fading firelight. Before departure, the little red-cheeked girl walks toward the ancient handprints near the rear wall. Quietly, she presses her own small hand beside them against the cold stone. Not a perfect match. Close enough. You suddenly imagine how many families crossed through this shelter over thousands of winters. Different languages, different faces. Same fear of cold nights and empty stomachs. Same firelight, same hope for spring. Historians often debate how connected prehistoric humans truly felt across distant landscapes and generations. Yet standing here, beside ancient hands and fresh footprints, the answer feels strangely obvious. People have always searched for traces of each other in the dark. The clan leaves the painted cave shortly afterward, beneath pale morning sunlight. Snow crunches beneath loaded sleds, while smoke from the extinguished fire fades slowly behind you. The bone flute travels now beside your people too. Another memory carried eastward through winter. Ahead, the frozen forest stretches endlessly beneath bright snow and cold skies. Somewhere beyond those ridges, elk continue moving through hidden valleys. And somewhere farther still, spring waits patiently for all surviving things. Sometimes. Section 19. The weather changes first. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just small things. The wind loses some of its sharpness during the mornings. Snow along exposed rocks softens slightly beneath weak sunlight before freezing again after dusk. Tiny streams whisper beneath the ice longer than before. Winter still rules the land. But something beneath it has begun shifting. Your people continue southeast through rolling forest valleys, where elk tracks appear almost daily now. Sometimes the herd feels close enough to touch. Fresh droppings steam beside buried grass. Hoofprints carve deep, winding paths between trees. Then the animals vanish again into distance and fog. Hope behaves similarly. The migration grows harder, despite improving weather. Mammoth meat grows heavier each day, as exhaustion settles deeper into everyone's bones. Boots wear thin. Fur coverings stiffen from constant snow and smoke. Even children move more quietly now. The feverish child survives, though weakness still clings to them like frost. At night, coughing echoes softly through camp. The old woman listens carefully every time. One afternoon, the clan pauses near a frozen meadow, partially cleared by wind. Dead grass pushes through the snow here in pale yellow patches. The tracker kneels beside several fresh elk tracks crossing the field. Very fresh. She touches one print, still crumbling. Nearby branches remain stripped where animals fed recently. The herd cannot be far. Hunters spread carefully through the trees, while everyone else waits near a cluster of rocks, sheltered from the wind. Children stay unusually silent. Even they understand what a successful hunt means now. You wait beside the little red-cheeked girl, while she carves shapes into packed snow using a broken antler tine. "What are you making?" you ask quietly. She points proudly. "Elk." The carving resembles a lumpy potato with legs. But honestly, prehistoric art probably started exactly this way. A distant bird cry suddenly echoes across the meadow. Signal. Hunters found something. The tracker appears moments later, moving quickly downhill. 2 animals, she says, young. Excitement ripples through the group immediately. Controlled excitement. Nobody wastes energy celebrating turtles anymore. The hunting party moves out carefully through scattered trees, while others remain hidden among the rocks. You join the trackers this time, carrying a spear, polished smooth from constant handling. The forest feels alive again suddenly. Birds flutter overhead. Tree branches drip faintly beneath weak sunlight. Somewhere ahead, hooves scrape snow, searching for buried grass. Then you see them. 2 elk grazing near a fallen pine. Smaller than expected. Thin from winter. Still magnificent. Steam rises from their nostrils while their ears twitch constantly toward every sound. One lifts its head, suddenly alert, but uncertain. The tracker signals silently. "Circle left." Another hunter moves right. Snow muffles your approach beautifully. Slowly, the hunters close around the animals, while wind carries human scent safely away through the trees. Then a branch snaps, too loud. One elk bolts immediately. The second hesitates only briefly before following. Hunters surge forward through deep snow, shouting sharply. The chase explodes between trees, while snow sprays beneath pounding hooves. You run hard enough that cold air tears painfully through your chest. Branches whip against your shoulders. The nearest elk crashes downhill toward a narrow ravine, where hidden ice gleams beneath drifting powder. The tracker appears ahead suddenly, perfectly positioned. The elk swerves sharply. Its front legs collapse through thin ice. For one terrible moment, the animal thrashes wildly, half submerged in freezing water, while hunters surround the ravine edge. Then the tracker strikes cleanly. Silence returns quickly afterward. Steam rises around the fallen elk, while snow drifts softly across dark fur. The hunters stand breathing heavily beneath pale afternoon sunlight. Relief again. Always relief first. Archaeologists found evidence suggesting prehistoric hunters often used natural terrain traps, including ravines, rivers, soft ground, and ice crossings to increase hunting success while minimizing danger. Nature helped hunt itself sometimes. The return to camp feels lighter despite the weight of fresh meat. Children run forward eagerly once the elk appears between the trees. Even the exhausted, feverish child smiles weakly beneath wrapped furs. Food changes people immediately. The old woman wastes no time organizing the butchering work, beside heated stones and fresh fires. Fat crackles softly over flames, while sharp flint blades scrape hide from flesh with practiced speed. The air smells rich again, warm, alive. As evening settles across the meadow, something else changes too. Water drips steadily nearby. You notice it first from beneath the rocks bordering camp. Tiny streams emerge beneath snowbanks, threading silver lines through frozen earth, before vanishing again under ice, melting. The little girl notices too. "Winter is leaking," she says softly, a surprisingly accurate description. Historians studying Ice Age seasonal patterns believe late winter and early spring often created especially dangerous conditions, despite warming temperatures. Melting ice weakened crossings, destabilized slopes, and transformed familiar terrain unpredictably. Thaw brings risks of its own. Still, no one complains about dripping water. That night, the sky finally clears completely. Stars spread overhead, in impossible numbers above the snowy valley. Fires crackle gently, while people sit wrapped in mammoth hides, chewing fresh elk meat beneath open darkness. The northern elder removes the carved bone flute again. This time, no storm interrupts the music. The notes drift upward through cold, clean air, while sparks rise from the fire, like tiny stars, trying to return home. Children fall asleep gradually beside the flames, while adults stare silently toward the sky. The tracker sits beside you quietly, then points upward. Birds. A small flock crosses the moonlit sky moving north, very early for the season. But real, migrating birds signal change better than words ever could. Some prehistoric groups likely timed movements partly through animal behavior. Bird migrations, melting patterns, and shifting plant growth. Nature announced the seasons constantly for those patient enough to listen, and humans listened because survival required attention. Later, long after most people sleep, you walk a short distance beyond camp alone. Snow crunches softly beneath your boots while cold air smells cleaner now. Less death. More water. The meadow glows silver beneath moonlight. Somewhere nearby, hidden beneath snow and earth seeds, wait silently for warmth strong enough to wake them. You stand listening. No avalanche. No howling wolves. Only dripping meltwater and distant wind through trees. The world still feels harsh beyond imagination, but no longer endless. Spring has not arrived yet. Not truly. Still, for the first time in many months, you can almost believe it exists. Section 20. Morning arrives with birdsong. Very faint, very distant, still enough to stop everyone moving for a moment. The sound drifts across the snowy meadow from somewhere beyond the eastern trees. Small, sharp calls. Fragile little notes carried through cold air. Nobody smiles immediately. The clan simply listens, because after such a long winter, even tiny signs feel enormous. Frost still covers the ground around camp when people rise beside the fire. Mammoth hides glisten pale beneath weak sunlight, while thin streams of meltwater move quietly under nearby snowbanks. Smoke climbs gently into clear skies for the first time in many days. The old woman kneels beside the embers, warming stiff hands over orange light. We stay today, the clan leader says softly. No one argues. Everyone needs rest now. The migration has carved exhaustion into every body. Boots hang split and worn near the fire. Spears carry fresh cracks from cold weather. Even the strongest hunters move carefully when standing. Winter has eaten from all of you, but not enough. Not enough to finish the work. The little red-cheeked girl wakes wrapped beneath mammoth fur beside the stranger child. They immediately begin arguing quietly over whose carved animal figures look more realistic. Neither resembles any known creature. That hardly matters. Nearby, the feverish child finally walks without help, for the first time since leaving the painted cave. Their mother watches every step with hidden relief. Kindness survives winter too. Historians believe prehistoric survival depended not only on hunting skill or physical endurance, but also on cooperation, caregiving, and shared responsibility. Injured people lived. Sick children recovered. Elders survived long enough to pass knowledge forward. Human beings endured together. That may have been the greatest tool of all. Throughout the morning, people repair equipment beside the fire, while hunters dry fresh elk meat over low smoke. The smell drifts warmly through camp now. Rich, fatty, comforting. Not abundance, but enough. Enough matters deeply after hunger. The tracker spends much of the day studying the southern ridges, where snow has begun collapsing from dark rocks in wet, heavy sheets. Water glitters there, beneath pale sunlight. Movement everywhere now. Ice loosens from branches overhead with soft cracking sounds. Streams murmur beneath snow crusts. Ravens circle lower, searching for exposed earth. The world wakes slowly. You walk beyond camp near midday, carrying a skin container toward a narrow stream uncovered by the thaw. The water moves quickly beneath broken ice sheets, cold and perfectly clear. You kneel carefully beside it. For the first time in many months, you drink without melting snow first. The water tastes alive. Above the stream, tiny green shoots push through muddy ground near exposed stones. Barely visible. Easy to miss. Still growing. Archaeologists studying Ice Age climates believe seasonal transitions transformed prehistoric landscapes rapidly once temperatures shifted. Rivers reopened. Herds changed routes. Birds returned. Plant growth revived entire food chains within surprisingly short periods. After endless cold life moved fast. You touch one small green shoot gently, soft, delicate, unbelievably brave. Back at camp, laughter rises suddenly near the fire. Real laughter this time. One hunter slipped in mud while carrying elk fat and now smells deeply unpleasant. Children find this endlessly entertaining. Even the tracker hides a smile briefly behind her hand. Mud feels strange after so much snow, almost shocking. The northern elder plays the bone flute again during the afternoon, while people work beneath open skies. The music drifts softly through warming air as smoke rises straight upward for once without harsh winds tearing it away. No storms today, only light. As evening approaches, several hunters return from scouting farther east. Their news spreads quickly through camp. The elk herd move toward lower valleys, grasslands, open water nearby, good land for spring. Hope changes shape once warmth returns. During winter, hope means surviving another night, another storm, another hunger. Now hope stretches farther. Tomorrow, next season, children growing older. The clan leader studies the fading sunlight across the meadow. We follow tomorrow, he says. Again, no one argues. This time, movement no longer feels like fleeing. It feels like continuation. As darkness settles, the campfire burns lower and calmer than before. No desperate feeding of flames tonight. No frantic fear of losing heat before dawn. People sit quietly together, watching sparks drift into deep blue sky. The little girl eventually curls beside you, beneath layered hides. Will winter come back? She asks sleepily. Yes. The answer feels honest. She thinks about this carefully. Will we survive again? You glance toward the firelight, where hunters, elders, strangers, and children sit shoulder to shoulder beneath ancient stars. Smoke clings softly to mammoth hides, while the bone flute rests beside glowing embers. Yes, you say quietly. Probably. The girl falls asleep soon afterward, holding the tiny mammoth carving against her chest. The night grows softer. Not warm, never warm, but gentler. Far away wolves howl once beneath the hills. The sound no longer feels terrifying, merely distant. Another living thing surviving beside you in the vast prehistoric dark. You lie back slowly watching stars move above the camp. Somewhere beyond those ridges, rivers open beneath melting ice. Birds continue returning north. Grass pushes through frozen earth. Herds travel ancient paths older than memory, and humanity travels with them. You think of the old cave now abandoned beneath broken stone, of painted mammoths hidden in darkness, of graves beneath snow, of strangers sharing meat beside a frozen carcass, of fire carried carefully through storms by tired hands, refusing to let it die. Generation after generation, winter after winter, not stronger than nature, never stronger, just stubborn enough. The fire burns lower beside sleeping bodies, while meltwater whispers through the dark meadow nearby. Smoke drifts upward slowly into the cold, clear sky. Above you, stars shine over the same ancient world that shaped every human story, still waiting far in the future. And at last, with the long winter finally weakening around you, your tired eyes begin to close beside the fading embers. The wind softens, the earth breathes, and somewhere beyond the darkness, spring keeps coming closer. Sleep now. The fire will hold until morning.